Chapter 30:26. 10 years had passed, and Tang Jiang often thought of her master who brought her into Yuan sect. She was no longer an ignorant child. She already knew how high her master's status was in the Yuan sect, and how great his influence was. Even peak Master Mo, who doted on her the most, would show great respect when talking about her master. She also knew a lot about her master's past, such as how he entered Yuan sect as the first and how he rose step by step over the years. He was like a legend. Occasionally, Tang Jiang even felt like she was dreaming. When she was a child, she was considered to be unable to cultivate because of her weak body. But who could have thought that in just 10 years she had been reborn? Her master was a legendary figure whose name shook the world and was as graceful as a god. Everything seemed so unreal. Tang Jiang was afraid that when she woke up from the dream, she would find that everything was fake. Good progress. In the distance, Lin Sun and Xie Ji walked side by side. Looking at Tang Jiang, who had grown to his shoulder, Lin Sun said, "In the future, you should stick to your heart. Don't bite off more than you can chew and belittle yourself." Tang Jiang nodded hard. "I'll listen to you, master. These are some of my previous cultivation experiences. You can take them and figure them out." Lin Sun handed a prepared jade slip to Tang Jiang. "Remember, this is my cultivation experience. It may not be suitable for you." Tang Jiang quickly took it with both hands and showed a bright smile. "Master, you are the best to me. I will not let you down in the future." Lin Sun smiled. "Cultivation is your own business. As long as you enjoy it, I won't be disappointed no matter how high your future achievements are. Don't put any pressure on yourself." Next, Lin Sun met Mo Lanshan and chatted for a while before returning with Xie Ji. "There's something wrong with the girl's birth destiny." On the way, Xie Ji suddenly said. Lin Sun narrowed his eyes. "What did you see?" Xie Ji said, "In my perception, her past karma seems to have been erased. She feels like a dead person, and all traces of the past have disappeared. Only in the past 10 years, new karma has been born, and her fate has been completely reversed and can't be predicted." Lin Sun was shocked as he recalled the scene when he brought Tang Jiang back from the dead. Without a doubt, Tang Jiang had already died back then, so the karma on her body had been eliminated. However, it was also because of him that a brand new destiny had been opened for her. And all of this was because of nirvana? Bestowed by order. Is it a good thing or a bad thing? Lin couldn't help asking. Xie Ji said without hesitation, "Of course it's a good thing. It means that her future cultivation will be completely controlled by herself. Whether she lives or dies, it all depends on her luck. You also know that fate is very mysterious. When you changed your fate in the heaven accessing place, your fate was reversed. For that little girl, her experience was the same as yours." She paused for a moment and said, "Fate is usually similar for ordinary cultivators. No matter how high one's attainments in the Grand Tao are, if one isn't able to attain eternity, then one's fate is bound to be restrained by the various calamities and tribulations on the path towards the Grand Tao. Fortunately, I can resist it with my own spirit and resolve it. The unfortunate ones will almost all perish in the calamity." Speaking of this, there was a trace of confusion in Xie Ji's clear eyes. "It's easy to say. In fact, until now, I still don't know the real mystery of the Grand Tao of Destiny," Lin Sun said with a smile. "Don't worry, you can always understand its mystery step by step in the future." In fact, he couldn't calm down in his heart. Nirvana? Order could not only bring the dead back to life, but also cut off a person's past fate, reshape his fate, and make him realize the transformation of changing his fate. Changing fate. How terrible was this kind of power? Lin Sun couldn't help but sigh at this moment. If he hadn't met his apprentice Tang Jiang, he might not have discovered nirvana? Order had such a magical power. Similarly, if it hadn't been for Xie Ji, he wouldn't have been able to deeply understand nirvana? The mysteries behind Order's ability to resurrect the dead and defy the heavens and change fate, were truly astonishing. After returning to the cave residence, Lin Sun continued to practice in seclusion. Xia Ji stayed with him all the time, eating, sleeping, and eating. Only when he woke up occasionally did she talk to him in a quiet and peaceful way. Another 8 years passed in a hurry. In this year, Lin Sun's cultivation entered the transcendent realm great perfection. In this realm, there was no more breakthrough. In the eternal realm, he was only one step away. At the moment when he broke through to the great perfection, Lin Sun's heart surged with enlightenment. The 3 realms of heaven, longevity, nirvana, and creation on the immortal way, his immortal supreme potential was completely released at this moment and integrated into his cultivation. This was a true great perfection, a kind of supreme aura that arose spontaneously. On the immortal way, he was invincible. Lin Sun could clearly feel that all the power in his body showed a kind of great perfection, great freedom, and great transcendence. It was just like a furnace with thousands of daos turning into one. Compared to the transcendent late stage, after reaching the great perfection, it also sublimated his cultivation to a new level. Not to mention the old monster in the transcendent realm great perfection, Lin Sun was confident that he could easily defeat the eternal realm's Dharma idol. This was a feeling that came from the bottom of his heart. It was the deepest understanding and judgment of his own strength, not arrogance. At the same time, in these 8 years, Lin Sun was also about to reach nirvana. The order had been refined to 80% level, which further changed his immortal law. He clearly sensed that, under the nourishment of his immortal law, little immortal and little netherworld, the 2 order powers born in the last era, were constantly evolving and transforming. Now, they had a faint aura of heaven level 9. What surprised him most was that these 2 orders still had extremely amazing growth potential. It was also this discovery that made Lin Sun realize that the little immortal, that once covered the immortal world, and the little netherworld, that once covered the netherworld, were both divine level order powers. The ultimate form of their transformation was destined to be related to the immortal world law and the netherworld law. This was something that Lin Sun didn't know at all before. It was a pity that Wushuang was not here. Otherwise, with Lin Sun's current understanding of the nirvana, the control of the mystery of order was also enough to easily infer the potential and mystery of the nirvana. It was also in this first year that Tao Ling, who had been promoted to the Elder of Sky Origin Pavilion, came to visit. Lin Sun suddenly realized that it was very likely that something big had happened. Otherwise, under normal circumstances, no one would come to disturb his cultivation. As expected, when he saw Tao Ling for the first time, he looked serious and said, "Brother, Pavilion Head Yan Ji invites you and other deputy pavilion heads to meet him in the central hall. Has Pavilion Head Yan Ji come out?" Lin Sun was shocked. Tao Ling said, "No, it's just a spiritual manifestation." Lin Sun nodded and immediately told Xia Ji to wait in the cave residence, while he went straight to the central hall. The central hall. When Lin Sun arrived, Xian Feiling, Du Guyong and other 7 deputy pavilion heads had already arrived. Yan Ji, who was thin and looked simple, sat casually in the central main seat. Swish. When Lin Sun's figure just appeared outside the hall, Yan Ji's eyes stared at him like a pair of torches, and immediately showed a surprised expression. "How many years has it been? You have already reached the full completion of this realm?" As soon as Yan Ji said this, Xian Feiling and others were shocked and showed a strange expression. Before, they didn't notice the change of Lin Sun's breath. If Yan Ji didn't tell them, they wouldn't have noticed it. "Senior, you have a good eyesight." Lin Sun cupped his hands to salute. He knew he couldn't hide it from Yan Ji. Yan Ji said with a smile, "Last time, you cultivated in seclusion for 55 years and advanced from the early stage to the late stage of the transcending realm. This time, you cultivated in seclusion for 18 years and broke through the most difficult stage of this realm, reaching the great perfection realm. This speed of advancement is unprecedented. You won't be able to find a second one. Xian Feiling sighed. Alas, old weirdo Yin, you don't know. Since this kid stepped into the transcendent realm, I feel uncomfortable every time I meet him. It's like he's riding on my neck. Of course, this was a joke. Everyone couldn't help laughing. Until Lin Sun sat down, Yanji said, "This time, I call you here for one thing. You Beihai, the old guy, will prove the eternal Tao in half a year. It's time to prepare for some things in advance." Everyone couldn't help but look serious. According to the time, shouldn't it take about 3 years? Du Guyong asked. Yanji said, "How can there be an accurate date for breaking through the realm? Yesterday, I received a message from old Yu. When I talked about this, he was a little surprised. But I'm sure that this is also a good thing. After all, the opportunity to prove the eternal Tao has finally come." Xian Feiling said, "Then, what do we need to do?" Yanji said, "When the time comes, I will personally protect old Yu. What all of you need to do is to protect the safety of the Yuan sect. Once enemies attack, you must defend the primordial realm from being conquered. Otherwise, not only will the foundation of the Yuan sect be shaken, but old Yu's Dao validation will also be affected." In the end, his expression became serious. "A few years ago, I went out to inquire about the news of Voodoo cult and Zen cult. I'm sure that they won't miss this opportunity," Fang Daoping said in a deep voice. Everyone's reaction was very calm, because this was within their expectations. Yanji asked, "Is there any news from the 8th heaven?" "They can't protect themselves. Even if they want to get involved, they can't do it," Xian Feiling said. "At present, the most difficult thing to figure out is the attitude of the eternal gods in the 9th heaven. If they also get involved, there will undoubtedly be many variables." Yanji frowned and said, "We must make plans for this matter." Xian Feiling nodded. Seeing that the atmosphere was a little gloomy, Yanji smiled and said, "You don't have to be too anxious. No matter how many variables there is still me and Tai Xian. When the sect really reaches the critical moment of life and death, we will fight with them. To think about victory, think about defeat first. This is the safest consideration." Seeing that Xian Feiling and the others were about to say something, Lin Sun suddenly said, "Seniors, can you listen to me? Add more chapters." Chapter 30-27. Yanji, Xian Feiling, and the others were stunned and looked at Lin Sun to see what he was going to say. Lin Sun said calmly, "From today on, I will guard the infinite star sea alone." Everyone was surprised. The entrance to the Yuan realm was located in the infinite star sea. When Lin Sun came to the Yuan realm for the first time, he crossed the infinite star sea and took a trial in the holy city of 10,000 desolation in the depths of the infinite star sea. Finally, he was qualified to enter the Yuan sect to cultivate. It could be said that the infinite star sea was the first line of defense outside the Yuan realm. Once a disaster came, the enemy would definitely appear in the infinite star sea. Lin Sun's proposal to guard the infinite star sea by himself was undoubtedly tantamount to guarding the front line and protecting the Yuan sect by himself. "No, it's too rash." Yanji shook his head. When he was about to dissuade Lin Sun interrupted with a smile. "No one under the eternal realm is my opponent. Under such circumstances, it's most suitable for me to guard the infinite star sea." After a pause, he looked at Xian Feiling and the others. "Seniors, you don't have to persuade me anymore. I've made up my mind." Xian Feiling and the others narrowed their eyes slightly, feeling emotional. They could see that they really couldn't dissuade Lin Sun this time. "There's still half a year. Why are you in such a hurry?" Yanji frowned. "What's more, if we let you guard the outside alone, won't those opponents laugh at us?" Lin Sun said with a smile, "Senior, you don't have to persuade me anymore." Yanji was silent for a moment and said, "If you encounter danger, remember to return to the sect as soon as possible." Lin Sun cupped his hands and nodded. "Look, this kid is getting more and more arrogant. Now even us old guys can't persuade him. Xian Feiling teased. There's no other way. We can't beat him even if we join forces. Du Guyong sighed. The others couldn't help laughing. Although they were teasing, they all knew that Lin Sun was indeed the most powerful deputy pavilion master in the Yuan sect. He was the most powerful one under the Eternal Realm. Old weirdo Xian. Yanji looked at Xian Fei Ling and the others. I'll have to trouble all of you to gather the clansmen of the major clans in the Yuan sect. You must bring all of them into the Tian Yuan Mystery Land before old Yu reaches the Eternal Realm. The Tian Yuan Mystery Realm was formed by the divine level sequence power of the Yuan sect. It was also the core forbidden area of the Yuan sect and the safest place. Xian Feiling and the others nodded solemnly. As for the descendants of the 9 peaks and 3 pavilions, those below the Transcendent Realm, bring them to the Tian Yuan Mystery Realm as well. As for the others, they will guard the Yuan religion with you. Yen Jidao reminded. Leave them to us, Xian Feiling said. On the same day, Xian Feiling and the others took action. Meanwhile, Lin Sun left the Yuan sect alone. Infinite Star Sea. The waves were vast and boundless. A myriad of stars were embedded in the sky like gems, and they glowed dazzlingly, causing this mysterious expanse of ocean to seem like a divine and eternal place. In fact, this place was a forbidden area all year round and was covered by the sequence power. Without the permission of the Yuan sect, ordinary cultivators wouldn't be able to enter. In the center of the infinite star sea, there was an ancient giant city that was bathed in the radiance of the stars. The towering city wall seemed to be made of divine gold, and it was magnificent. Holy city of absolute gods. This city was built by the founder of the Yuan sect, Yuan Chu. Tens of thousands of immortal divine materials were used to build it. In the center of the city, there was a building shaped like a divine sword that pierced through the clouds. This was the Sword Palace of Absolute Gods. Back then, the Yuan sect assessment that Lin Sun participated in was held on the dojo in front of the Sword Palace of Absolute Gods. In the blink of an eye, 100 years had passed. Now, he was already the deputy pavilion master of the Yuan sect's Sky Pavilion and a famous transcendent realm existence. He was no longer the same as when he was still the Juetian emperor. On the highest floor of the Sword Palace, Lin Sun leaned against the railing and looked into the distance. Looking from here, he could see the vast expanse of the sea in all directions. Countless stars scattered on the surface of the sea, and it was quiet and vast. Xia Ji, a battle will break out in this sea area soon. After a while, Lin Sun retracted his gaze and looked at Xia Ji, who was standing quietly on the side, and said, If you want to fight with me, you must promise me one thing. Xia Ji said without hesitation, Say it. Lin Sun said seriously, If there is a fatal danger, you must not stand in front of me at all costs. Xia Ji was silent for a moment and said, Okay. Lin Sun smiled and said, Of course, with the combat power that you and I have now, no one in this world can threaten us unless it's an Eternal Realm expert. Speaking of this, a trace of emotion appeared between his eyebrows. In the past, when he and Xia Ji encountered danger, they could only hide and escape. Even if they tried to resolve it, they would have to pay a heavy price. But now, it's completely different. Half a month later, a piece of news spread all over the world. The Witch sect and the Zen sect have joined forces and announced that they want the Yuan sect to hand over Lin Sun, the successor of the Mind sect. Otherwise, they will personally go to the Yuan sect to kill Lin Sun within a month. A single stone caused 1,000 ripples. The major forces in the seventh heaven were the first to get the news, which caused a great uproar. In the past, the 10-clan battle alliance also wanted to deal with Lin Sun. However, it is said that the 10-clan battle alliance suffered heavy casualties in the sixth heaven. Who would have thought that the two ancestral halls of the Witch sect and the Zen sect would join forces to deal with Lin Sun? Someone was shocked. The world is going to be chaotic after all. The 4 ancestral halls are transcendent and have a terrifying foundation. Now, except for the ancestral hall of the spirit sect, the other 3 ancestral halls are facing each other. Once a war breaks out, it will affect the situation of the entire world. I just don't know if the 10-clan battle alliance will participate. All kinds of discussion sounded. The declaration of war by the Witch sect and the Zen sect also made the situation in the world tense and depressed. As time passed day by day, more and more news came out. The ancestral hall of the Zen sect has gathered a group of transcendent realm masters and is ready to go. It is said that the Zen sect's army will be led by Buddhist Lord Ji Kong. In the ancestral hall of the Witch sect, a group of priests has been dispatched. It is said that there are more than 20 old monsters in the transcendent realm great perfection level. It is said that a pavilion master of the Yuan sect is about to prove the eternal realm. At that time, the Yuan sect's deity level order power will no longer be able to protect the Yuan realm. The Yuan sect is in danger. The world was completely shaken. Countless cultivators from various forces were trembling in fear. For countless years, the 4 ancestral halls stood in the world with a transcendent status. Even the 10 immortal giants of the 8th heaven were wary of them. Who would have thought that such a conflict would break out between the 3 ancestral halls of the Yuan sect, the Witch sect, and the Zen sect? Once such a conflict broke out, the impact was bound to affect the entire eternal world. On the shore of the infinite star sea. Time passed quickly, a month passed. On this day, the sky was clear and boundless. With a buzz, the void fluctuated, and a group of figures appeared. There were men and women, old and young. Each of them had a vast aura, towering, and extremely terrifying. This was a group of transcendent realm existences. There were a total of 60 people. The person in the lead was dressed in black. He had his hands behind his back, and his aura was raging like the darkness of the eternal night. His face was old, and his eyes were filled with the aura of vicissitudes. However, along with his appearance, the originally clear sky was suddenly filled with darkness. Black clouds were surging, filled with an endless aura of disaster. The Witch sect's priest Tu Mohan. Behind him, there were 24 transcendent realm great perfection existences and 35 transcendent late realm existences. Including him, there were a total of 60 people. One should know that even the number 1 immortal giant, the Wang family, only had 9 transcendent realm great perfection existences emerge after countless years. But now, the Witch sect's ancestral court alone sent 24 transcendent realm great perfection existences. As one of the 4 ancestral halls, the Witch sect's foundation was terrifying. Tu Mohan placed his hands behind his back, and his old eyes stared at the vast sea in the distance. His voice was hoarse and low. This is the infinite star sea, where the Yuan sect's lair is located. The others were also sizing up the infinite star sea. All of them sensed a layer of obscure energy of order covering the boundlessly vast ocean. Soon, Yu Beihai will attain eternity. By then, the eternal calamity will descend, and the divine level order power protecting the Yuan sect will be severely suppressed. That will be the best time for us to kill our way into the Yuan sect. After a while, Tu Mohan spoke softly. His turbid eyes were filled with indifference and coldness. However, before that, perhaps we can have a good talk with the Yuan sect. Everyone's eyes flickered, and they seemed to know what Tu Mohan was going to do next. I'm the Witch sect's priest, Tu Mohan. Today, I'm here to pay a visit with a group of people. Tu Mohan opened his mouth. His deep and hoarse voice rumbled through the sky like thunder, and it spread towards the depths of the infinite star sea. At the peak of the 1,000 extinction sword palace, Lin soon opened his eyes from meditation, and a trace of coldness appeared in the depths of his pupils. Pay a visit? He's obviously not here with good intentions. Just as he was about to respond, he heard a sneer. Tu Mohan, look at the situation now. Why are you still pretending to pay a visit? Just state your purpose of coming. With the voice, the figure of Xian Feiling appeared beside Lin Sun. Lin Sun was stunned and said, Senior, didn't we agree that I should guard this place alone? Xian Feiling said with a smile, The war hasn't broken out yet. I'm just here to see what these old bastards of the witch sect want to do. Lin Sun said helplessly, As you wish. On the shore of the infinite star sea, after hearing Xian Feiling's voice, Tu Mohan's eyes flashed and he said, Xian Feiling, since you're here, I might as well speak frankly. As long as your Yuan sect hands over Lin Sun, I'll leave with my people immediately. His voice rumbled and spread away. What if you don't hand him over? Xian Feiling said slowly, talking to him across the air. Tu Mohan said expressionlessly, I'm afraid that there will be no place for the ancestral court of the Yuan sect in this world in the future. His voice was filled with endless coldness, which made people's hearts tremble. Hearing this, Xian Feiling was silent for a moment, and then suddenly laughed up to the sky. Your witch sect is really arrogant. If you have the guts, why don't you come in now? His voice was full of ridicule and disdain. All the big shots of the witch sect had uncontrollable killing intent on their faces. P.S. Kavinka is really powerful, and the second one is a little late. Chapter 30:28. Tu Mohan looked calm and said, If words are useful, why do we need cultivation? Since Yuan Church insists on protecting Lin Sun, why not wait here for a while? As he spoke, he sat cross-legged on a rock on the side of the sea and closed his eyes to rest. Seeing this, other big shots of witchcraft cult also sat down casually and calmly. In the Wanjua Sword Palace, Xian Feiling frowned and said to Lin Sun, On the surface, witchcraft cult has sent 24 Transcendent Realm Great Perfection and 36 Transcendent Realm late-stage experts this time. But they dare to clamor to destroy our sect. I'm afraid they have other preparations. Lin Sun said, Can they send people in the eternal realm? Xian Feiling pondered and said, Maybe there is such a possibility. But don't worry. Once the eternal realm experts appear, they will be restrained and counterattacked by the rules of heaven and earth. If it were any other time, it wouldn't be a big deal to injure some of your Tao. But don't forget, the epic calamity will arrive in 1,000 years. Injuring your Tao at this time is a huge risk for any eternal realm expert. Lin Sun said thoughtfully, In this case, they must be able to use the power of the eternal realm experts, but they will never use it easily, right? Xian Feiling smiled and said, Of course. Just like in our Yuan clan, if we really encounter a life-and-death situation, do you think the Taishan Pavilion Master, who is trapped in the mystery realm of comprehending mystery, will sit back and watch? Lin Sun nodded. Xian Feiling said, The core purpose of witchcraft cult is nothing more than to take advantage of the situation. They want to kill you and seize the divine order power in your hands. I'm afraid they know that it's almost impossible to destroy our sect without an eternal realm expert. After a pause, Xian Feiling said, It's the same for Zen Church. Lin Sun exhaled a long breath of turbid air and said, I will guard this place and stop them here. Xian Feiling patted him on the shoulder and said, Don't put too much pressure on yourself. Remember, our sect will advance and retreat with you. It didn't take long for Xian Feiling to leave. Lin Sun thought of the third sister of Spirit Church. The only thing he was worried about now was that if his third senior sister and the others found out about the situation in the Yuan sect and rashly came to the rescue, it was extremely likely that other variables would occur. For example, on the surface, the witch cult and the Zen cult had joined hands to deal with the Yuan cult, but could this be a pretense to lure third senior sister and the others to come and rescue them? As long as they captured the third sister, they would be able to threaten Lin Sun. Similarly, if something like this had happened in the Spirit Church, there would probably be many unforeseen variables if he were to head over to rescue them. I can only hope that third senior sister and the others will stay calm and not get involved, Lin Sun murmured. Time passed day by day. On the shore of the infinite star sea, Tu Mohan and the other important figures of the shaman cult were waiting quietly. The soldiers were at the gates of the city. This was a direct threat. The news quickly spread throughout the world. Everyone knew that the sorcerer cult had taken action and were waiting for the right moment. A great battle could break out at any time. The news spread to the spiritual church as soon as possible. Our spirit church has always been on good terms with the Yuan church. How can we remain indifferent when something like this happens? Spiritual Master Qin Yun was very surprised. He didn't expect that Ruo Su would come to visit him after learning that the witch cult and the Zen cult had joined hands to attack the Yuan cult. She hoped that the spirit church wouldn't help the Yuan cult. This is probably a trap, Ruo Su said softly. In other words, the purpose of the witch cult and the Zen cult's action this time is not to fight with the Yuan cult, but to deal with me and other junior brothers and sisters. As long as they capture us, they can threaten my junior brother to do anything. Qin Yun's eyes flickered. But don't you worry that if your guess is wrong, your junior brother and the Yuan cult will suffer a great disaster? Ruo Su smiled and said, It's useless to worry. As long as we don't make any mistakes, my junior brother won't be affected. After a pause, she continued, What's more, if he really needs help, he would have sent a message to us. Qin Yun fell silent for a moment before he said, I won't hide it from you. Not long ago, I received a message from Fang Daoping, and he said that he doesn't allow our spirit church to interfere in this matter. I was quite curious at first, but it would seem like both the Origin Church and that junior brother of yours were probably prepared. Ruo Su's eyes lit up. So, the sect already knows about this matter? Qin Yun nodded and said, When Yu Beihai proves his Tao, the sect will send a group of seniors to observe the ceremony. When that time comes, you and the other successors of Fang Siyuan won't have to go with them. Ruo Su thought for a while and agreed. There was only half a month left before Yu Beihai proved his Tao. By the infinite star sea, Tu Mohan and the other important figures of the witch cult felt a wave of spatial fluctuations. Soon after, a group of imposing figures in monk robes and straw sandals appeared. All of them looked solemn and dignified. They were the important figures of the Zen cult. The leader had a snow-white beard and a skinny figure. He wore a monk robe that was full of patches. His sunken cheeks were filled with wrinkles, and his wrinkled skin had a bronze color. Buddha Ji Kong. Known as the first Buddha of the Zen cult, he had proved his Tao for hundreds of thousands of years. He was like a living fossil. Behind Ji Kong was a group of powerful figures of the Zen cult. Their number was equal to that of the witch cult. Didn't succeed? Tu Mohan got up and asked in a hoarse voice. Ji Kong shook his head and said, The spirit cult hasn't taken any action. I couldn't wait for a long time, so I had to leave in advance. Tu Mohan frowned and said, So, it's impossible to capture the successors of Fang Siyuan of the spirit sect to threaten Lin Sun. Crafty plots and schemes are just a small trick. There was a solemn and calm expression on Ji Kong's skinny face. Since it's useless, we should achieve our wish with an open and above-board army. Tu Mohan snorted coldly. This conspiracy was proposed by your Zen cult. Don't slap yourself in the face. Ji Kong looked calm and said, From big to small ways, there is no difference between high and low. As he said, he looked at the infinite star sea in the distance and said, This time, our two ancestral halls have joined hands, and Yuan cult must be ready to fight with all their strength. Brother Tu, what do you think are the odds of winning with the forces in our hands? We'll do our best and leave the rest to fate. Tu Mohan said indifferently, As long as the eternal realm of Yuan cult doesn't take action, no one can protect Lin Sun this time. Ji Kong said calmly, The master of the core dimension has been plotting for eons and gave birth to a lotus that has never existed before. Once such an immortal supreme attains eternity, the world is destined to fall into chaos, and our two ancestral courts will be the first to bear the brunt. Both witch cult and Zen cult regarded Fang Siyuan Mountain as their mortal enemy, which was not without reason. Tu Mohan said, Lin Sun's current combat power is enough to pose a fatal threat to us old guys. It's not easy to deal with him. Who cared about such a young man in the past? A young man? But now, such a young man had become a thorn in their side, which was something that no one had expected. Ji Kong was silent for a while and said, "In the sixth heaven, the 10 Clans War Alliance dispatched the Dharma images of many eternal realm figures, but without exception, they couldn't do anything to Lin Sun. In Brother Tu's opinion, under such circumstances, how should we kill him?" Tu Mohan said expressionlessly, "No one saw the battle in the sixth heaven with their own eyes. Even if Lin Sun has the supreme power of this realm, it is doomed to be impossible for him to destroy the Dharma image of the eternal realm. In my opinion, there must be a big shot of Yuan cult helping him in the sixth heaven." After a pause, he continued, "But the situation is different now. We have already killed our way out of Yuan cult. On the contrary, Lin Sun's threat is the least. It's the old guys of Yuan cult who should be vigilant." Ji Kong said, "What if the master of Taixien takes action?" Tu Mohan's eyes suddenly narrowed, and then he said indifferently, "If he dares to take action, someone will deal with him." Ji Kong said, "It seems that Brother Tu is well prepared. Isn't your Zen cult the same?" Tu Mohan snorted coldly, "If you don't have some confidence, you can't eat the fat meat of Yuan cult." Ji Kong was silent for a long time and suddenly sighed, "I'm afraid the outcome of this battle will fall outside the chess game." "Outside the chess game?" Tu Mohan frowned. "What do you mean?" Ji Kong said, "A hunch may not come true. You people from the Zen sect are the most mysterious. You are shrouded in mist." Tu Mohan showed a trace of disdain. "I don't care about the inside and outside of the chess game. I only believe that as long as I am strong enough, I can crush everything." Ji Kong smiled slightly and said nothing more. Half a month later, at the top of the Wanjua Sword Palace, Lin Sun, who was meditating, seemed to feel something and suddenly stood up. Almost at the same time, a deep and melodious bell rang in Yuan cult, and the world fell silent. Then, in a forbidden secret realm behind Yuan Qing Mountain, a figure stepped in the air, came to the sky, and looked up at the sky. He was dressed in a white robe and looked like a young man. His skin was crystal white, and only the depths of his eyes were surging with mysterious and unfathomable Taoist light. On his back, there was a wooden sword, with a red silk rope tied to the hilt, fluttering in the wind. As he stood there casually, he was like a carefree immortal god that looked down upon the world, and he carried an unrestrained aura and an extraordinary and proud bearing. Yuan Qing Pavilion Head Yu Beihai, an old antique who had been practicing in seclusion for countless years, and a legend on the road of swordsmanship. A long time ago, he and Tai Xian were called the double skills of Yuan cult. Old Yu, you can prove your Taoism with peace of mind today. In the distance, Yen Ji's figure appeared out of thin air, and he said calmly, "Don't pay attention to other things." Yu Beihai nodded slightly. Then, he stretched out a finger from his sleeve and made a stroke toward the sky. A shadow suddenly appeared in the depths of the clear sky. The shadow spread and swallowed the whole day. The world suddenly fell into darkness. Boom! At the same time, the power of order around Yuan realm seemed to have suffered a great threat, and began to fluctuate violently. P.S. Double monthly votes started today. Goldfish didn't encourage people to spend money on monthly vote. Just do what you can. After dinner, Goldfish would continue to write, but it would be very late. Chapter 30:29. The sky suddenly darkened while a shapeless aura of calamity spread out, and it pressed down upon everyone to the point of suffocation. Under the sky, Yu Beihai stood with his hands behind his back. His sleeves fluttered in the wind as he remained silent and motionless. Xian Feiling and the other deputy pavilion masters raised their heads, feeling a little nervous. A calamity was about to descend. Pavilion Master Yu Beihai would attain eternity today. "Is everything ready?" Xian Feiling asked. Du Guyong, Fang Daoping, and the others nodded. Other than the transcendent realm existences, the other members of the Yuan school, as well as the clansmen of the major clans, had already been settled in the Tian Yuan mystery realm. Now, the primordial realm was cold and quiet, and it was extremely empty. All right. From now on, all of us in the transcendent realm and above will be stationed in the primordial realm. No matter what, we can't allow anyone to disrupt Pavilion Master Yu's path. Xian Feiling's eyes were resolute. The other deputy pavilion masters nodded and began to act. Xian Feiling headed out of the primordial realm alone. He was still worried about Lin Sun's safety after all. Infinite Star Sea. At the peak of the Wanjua Sword Palace, Lin Sun also raised his head. The clear sky had already been completely covered by thick tribulation clouds that were pitch black like ink, and it seemed as if the heavens and the earth had instantly fallen into boundless darkness. The suffocating atmosphere of disaster seemed to be everywhere, making Lin Sun's body feel cold. Heaven and earth were terribly silent. Even the vast infinite star sea seemed to have fallen into absolute stillness, without a trace of wind or wave. The tribulation clouds in the sky were getting thicker and thicker, and the sky was getting darker and darker. A dignified look appeared on Lin Sun's face. Without a doubt, this was the eternal Great Tribulation that belonged to Origin Clear Pavilion Lord Yu Beihai. It was unimaginably terrifying. Even though Lin Sun had experienced many unimaginable and mysterious tribulations in the past, he still felt frightened at this moment. Eternity. This was a legendary realm in the eyes of all living beings in the world. On the other hand, in the eyes of experts on the eternal path, eternity was like a natural chasm that was practically impossible to surmount. Old monsters like Xian Feiling, Fang Daoping, and Du Guyong had proven their Tao for tens of thousands of years, but none of them had proven their Tao to be eternal. Examples like this were common in the other 3 ancestral halls and the 10 undying giant. The reason was simple. The threshold of eternity was too high. It was so high that even those transcendent realm great perfection existences couldn't touch it. Once one entered the eternal realm, they would no longer fear the calamity of the end of eras. They would be able to use and control the laws and order of heaven and earth. This was no different from a creator. Although Lin Sun was now a transcendent realm great perfection, he had no clue about the eternal Tao. However, he wasn't in a hurry. He had just stepped into the threshold of the great perfection realm, and there would be plenty of opportunities in the future to seek the mysteries of Tao proving eternity. Boom! Suddenly, a wave of violent rumbling resounded in the world. This was not the sound of tribulation lightning, because the eternal tribulation targeting Yu Beihai had yet to descend. Lin soon noticed that the power of order covering the infinite star sea was fading away at an alarming rate. Even a god-level order would be suppressed by the aura of the eternal calamity. How terrifying would such a calamity be? Lin sighed with emotion. Then, he suddenly turned around and looked at the shore of the infinite star sea with his abyss-like dark eyes. Summer solstice, Lin Sun said softly. Summer Solstice, who was sitting on one side and concentrating on eating melon seeds, raised her head. 2 words were written in her clear eyes. What's the matter? She didn't seem to care about the impending eternal calamity at all, nor did she care about the power of order that was constantly dissipating from the infinite star sea. It seemed that as long as she was by Lin Sun's side, even if the sky collapsed and the earth sunk, or the flood rose to the sky, she wouldn't be able to attract her attention. The enemy is coming. Listen to my orders later, Lin Sun said softly. Summer Solstice agreed and put away the few spiritual melon seeds in her palm. She decided to destroy these delicious little things after the battle was over. Summer Solstice stood up. Her graceful figure was still dressed in a long black robe. Her beautiful face, which was enough to make the world dim, was hidden under the brim of the hat, revealing only her crystal white chin. Unknowingly, the white bone spear was already in her slender and fair hand. She stood side by side with Lin Sun and looked into the distance together. In a place far away, there was a ripple in the void. A burst of terrifying aura rose into the sky like a hurricane, breaking the dead atmosphere between heaven and earth. The murderous and oppressive aura was like a landslide and a tsunami, crushing the sea surface and spreading. The turbulent waves were still roaring and rolling, and the void showed signs of disorder visible to the naked eye. After that, groups of figures transformed into dazzling rays of light that whistled over from extremely far away. All of them were mighty and possessed monstrous imposing auras, and their entire bodies emanated the eternal glow of the Tao that illuminated this world that seemed like eternal night. These figures were the voodoo cult experts led by Tu Mohan and the Zen sect experts led by Ji Kong. The weakest of them had the cultivation of transcendent realm late. There were more than 100 experts in the two ancestral halls. Their own power gathered together. Wherever they passed, it was simply overturning mountains and seas, causing the world to shake. It was too terrifying. Even in the eighth heaven, the combined power of the top 10 immortal forces couldn't stop the impact of such a lineup. When seeing this scene from a distance, Lin Sun's expression was calm as usual. On the side, Xia Ji counted seriously and said, "Do you want to compete to see who can kill more later?" Lin Sun was startled, and his expression suddenly became serious. "Don't be careless. They must have trump cards that can threaten you and me." It was related to Xia Ji's safety, which made him a little nervous. "Are you afraid?" asked Xia Ji. Lin Sun shook his head. "I'm only worried about you." Xia Ji said, "Then I will fight side by side with you." Lin Sun was relieved and said, "That's for the best." Far away, Tu Mohan, Ji Kong, and the other allied forces of the two ancestral halls stopped in their tracks. Their gazes swept towards the holy city of 10,000 desolation, noticing the existence of Lin Sun and Xia Ji. Their eyes slightly narrowed, and they were all a little surprised. "Lin Sun," Tu Mohan said in surprise, "what is Yuan sect doing? They actually let the two of you guard this place?" This was really beyond their expectations. Previously, they thought that if they wanted to capture Lin Sun, they would have to first kill their way into Yuan sect and go through many obstacles before they could see Lin Sun. But who would have thought that before they entered the primordial realm, they would see Lin Sun in the infinite star sea outside the primordial realm. Moreover, in the huge holy city of 10,000 desolation, there was only Lin Sun and a woman. Ji Kong also raised his eyebrows slightly and said, "It's indeed a little abnormal." Lin Sun said indifferently, "Why? Didn't you come to deal with me? Why are you hesitating now?" "It's not really hesitation. We just didn't expect Yuan sect to throw caution to the wind like this. Could it be that Yuan sect has already decided to sacrifice you, a remnant, in order to let you Beihai attain eternity?" Tu Mohan's eyes were frightening. He had already sensed that there were no other ambushes in this sea region apart from Lin Sun and Xia Ji. "Wrong," said Lin Sun indifferently. "In the eyes of the entire Yuan sect, it's enough for me to deal with you. There's no need to trouble anyone else." "Arrogant," one of the old antiques of the shaman cult sneered. "Everyone, I've already sensed the surroundings with a secret technique. There are no ambushes here. You can deal with this lad freely," another old antique said with a murderous aura. However, despite saying so, no one took action. The scene in front of them was too abnormal. They clearly knew that the two ancestral halls came for Lin Sun, but they sent Lin Sun to guard outside the primordial realm. Who wouldn't be surprised? There must be something wrong when things were abnormal. Ha ha! At the peak of the palace of 10,000 desolation swords, Lin Sun couldn't help but laugh. Even he didn't expect that just because he was guarding here, the old monsters of the two ancestral halls would be so suspicious that they didn't dare to act rashly. For a moment, the world was filled with Lin Sun's mocking laughter. This made Tu Mohan, Ji Kong, and the others frown. Could this lad, have he really been abandoned by Yuan sect? If so, it was a great thing. However, who could be sure that this wasn't a conspiracy? "Lin Sun, Why are you so happy? Xie asked in confusion. Lin Sun said, I'm laughing at these old fellows. I don't know how long they've lived, but they're becoming less and less courageous. Xie said seriously, Isn't it normal for them to be afraid of the two of us? Lin Sun was stunned. How could she understand it like that? Immediately, he couldn't help laughing again and nodded. It seemed so. Seeing the two of them talking and laughing as if there was no one else around, the meaning revealed in their words made the faces of Tu Mohan and the other old monsters of which sect gloomy. Who cares if he's playing tricks or not? I'll go and meet him first. Suddenly, an old antique of which sect stood out. His figure was tall and strong like a mountain, with snow-white bone rings hanging on his ears. His skin was steaming with terrifying totem light. Lu Tu, one of the priests of which sect, a transcendent realm great perfection existence. Boom! He stepped in the air and moved the void. He was like a tyrannical and fierce god. Wherever he passed, the void rumbled and cracked. Here! A long bone rod appeared in his hand, and he smashed it towards Lin Sun from a great distance. Boom! The shadow of the rod swept through the air, and the terrifying black immortal law poured down like a waterfall. From afar, it looked like a divine rainbow from outer space. Let me, Xie said, and her graceful figure rushed out, waving the white bone spear. Boom! The horrifying rod's shadow exploded. A cold smile appeared on Lu Tu's face. This was just a feint. Seeing Xie rushing over, a murderous intent flashed in his eyes. He twisted his wrist, and the white bone rod made a dull and ear-piercing sound of thunder, smashing across the air. The momentum was so heavy that it shook the universe. This strike caused the void to collapse, and an unfathomable ravine suddenly appeared in the nearby sea area. The surging killing power was so strong that it made people's hearts tremble. Xie didn't dodge, but used the spear to block it. Clang! The white bone rod and the spear collided, and an earth-shattering explosion resounded. The horrifying aura of destruction spread between the two. Lu Tu's figure shook slightly, and he couldn't help but reveal a hint of surprise. This woman is so strong. But he didn't have much time to think. In Xie's slender white jade hand, the white bone spear simply and directly stabbed out, and the obscure power of karma and fate spread. At this moment, Lu Tu's heart trembled. He seemed to have sensed danger and subconsciously dodged. Puff! In the next moment, a handful of scarlet blood splattered. Lu Tu only felt a sharp pain in his body. He subconsciously lowered his head and saw a white bone spear piercing through his chest. He revealed a look of disbelief. I didn't dodge? How is this possible? Fast forward. Chapter 30:30. Lu Tu had fought in the world for countless years and experienced the baptism of blood. His combat power was also extremely terrifying. However, in that instant, he had been completely confident that he would be able to dodge that attack, yet he had still been struck. This abnormal and strange scene stimulated him to the point that he couldn't accept it at all. Lin Sun's expression was as usual. When he sparred with Xie, he was almost hurt by the power of karma and destiny. Boom! In the blink of an eye, terrifying power erupted from the white bone spear the moment it pierced through Lu Tu's body, which could be said to be indestructible, immediately exploded, and blood splattered everywhere. Clang! Xie put away the white bone spear. Her clothes fluttered, and her demeanor was as calm as before. Killing a witch cult transcendent realm great perfection with one blow didn't seem to affect her at all. But in the distance, Tu Mohan, Ji Kong, and others' expressions were a lot more serious. Lu Tu's death caught them off guard. Apart from being surprised, they also felt a chill and realized the horror of Xie. Karma and destiny are intertwined. This kind of supreme power of the Great Way is indeed terrifying. Ji Kong's expression was solemn, and his eyes were shining brightly. He saw through Xie's means. Everyone, to deal with this kind of power is like fighting against the Great Way divine retribution. You should confront it head-on. You must not retreat, otherwise you will suffer a fatal blow. You've said so much. Do you dare to fight with me? Xia Zhi's voice was clear and ethereal, indifferent and calm. Ji Kong said, "Fellow Taoist, a battle of life and death is not a child's play. You should kill the enemy with all your strength." Well said. Lin Sun's figure rose into the air, and his black eyes were cold. He said, "Today, I will experience the glory of your two ancestral halls." Humph. Tu Muhan's old face was filled with a touch of killing intent. "I want to see how powerful the immortal supreme way is." His skinny figure emerged with hundreds of millions of blood-colored lightning arc. All of a sudden, he seemed to have turned into an ancient thunder god, and the destructive aura surged. A black wooden staff appeared in his hand. The wooden staff surged with obscure and mysterious energy fluctuations. "Go kill this man," Tu Mohan said coldly. Boom. The nearby experts of the shaman cult also circulated their power at this moment. They either controlled the dark green divine flame or controlled the white bone halberd. They were like ghosts and gods from hell that had descended to the world. Some stepped on fiery clouds with countless purple saber auras lingering around their bodies. Some had divine light in their eyes as they held the mysterious beast skin Tao diagram. Every transcendent realm existence unleashed their divine might without concealing it. They unleashed their strongest treasures. The terrifying divine might caused the sea region to be in chaos, and the nearby void was in a state of turbulence. "Kill!" The elders of the witch sect swarmed forward. Lin Sun transmitted his voice, "Xia Zhi, remember what you promised me." As he spoke, he flicked his sleeve. The abyssal sword cauldron soared into the sky and floated above him and Xia Zhi. Clang! In the sword tripod, a Taoist sword rushed out with a clang. Lin Sun grabbed it in his hand and waved it down. This sword strike was vast, boundless, and brilliant. Rumble! The battle broke out. The attacks of the elders of the witch sect were like an overwhelming torrent, full of violent and boundless destructive murderous aura. The transcendent realm Great Perfection was the strongest existence under the eternal realm, standing at the top of the heavens. Now, a group of transcendent realm Great Perfection joined hands and unleashed all their means. They unleashed their strongest Taoist weapons and attacked Lin Sun together. It was imaginable how terrifying their power was. However, compared with 18 years ago, Lin Sun had changed again. His realm had reached the transcendent realm Great Perfection, and he had refined 80% of the order of Nirvana, order into his own immortal law. His combat power was so strong that he could look down upon all his peers in the heavens and the earth. As he slashed out with his sword, clatter, hundreds of millions of sword auras whizzed out, filled with divine brilliance. They crisscrossed and raged in all directions. This sword was full of the power to destroy the world, obscure and mysterious. The power was simply indescribable. It made the world fall into a dead silence. Only the clear and melodious sword sound resounded. The elephant was invisible, and the loudest sound was silent. It was precisely because this sword was too powerful that it had the might of returning to its original source and losing all its splendor. Boom! The sky fell, the earth cracked, and the seawater evaporated. The attacks of all the seniors of the shaman sect that covered the heavens and the earth were forcefully suppressed, resisted, and then exploded into pieces by this sword strike. One sword actually resisted the besiegement of the witch cult's elders. What a terrifying combat power! The pupils of the witch cult's elders shrank, and their faces changed. Before they came here, they already knew that Lin Sun's combat power was heaven-defying, and he possessed the power of the Immortal Supreme. But they never expected that his combat power had reached such a level. Tu Mohan's pupils shrank in the distance, and his heart trembled. He shouted immediately, "Use all your strength! Don't hold back!" There was no need to remind them at all. The witch cult's elders had already used all their strength. Prohibition! With a roar, 36 Transcendent Realm Late experts joined hand. Their figures were scattered in different directions, and they instantly formed a battle formation. Boom, a terrifying prohibition fluctuation spread, causing the whole world to fall into a chaotic black mist. There were even wisps of thunder and lightning surging in it, rolling towards Lin Sun and summer solstice. This battle formation was the supreme inheritance of the witch cult. 36 experts joined hands, and their aura communicated with each other. It was like a single person fighting, but the power released was terrifying. It was said to be able to refine the god. Even the transcendent realm great perfection had to avoid it. Originally, this was one of the trump cards prepared by Tu Mohan. But even they didn't expect that Lin Sun would show such a terrifying combat power as soon as he attacked. They had to use this formation in advance. Kill! 36 Transcendent Realm Late existences shouted in unison, and the entire battle formation was activated. In an instant, the heavens and the earth were covered in divine brilliance, flowing fire, Taoist radiance, and treasure aura. A rain of light splashed, and a deity's voice reverberated. It reflected the terrifying scenes of demons and gods roaring, time and space collapsing, and everything turning into powder. It was like the end of the world. Immediately afterward, a figure with a height of thousands of feet condensed from the battle formation and punched towards Lin Sun. That punch was like 100 mountains falling from the sky. Battle formation? Lin Sun couldn't help but show a cold arc on his lip. Swish. He attacked with his sword again. In an instant it seemed that there was a lightning in this world, but it was faster than lightning. The surging and terrifying fist was like a bubble in the face of this sword, and it was instantly torn apart. Swish. 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 Taking advantage of this opportunity, Lin Sun continuously slashed out thousands of sword chi, rolling and whistling. Under this kind of attack, the huge figure with a height of thousands of feet instantly showed countless cracks, and finally burst into pieces. The 36 Transcendent Realm Late experts trembled all over and coughed up blood. The battle formation formed by them was violently tumbling, showing signs of instability. How is it possible? Many people were shocked. This is the witch ancestors' god exterminating formation. Even ghosts and gods can be killed. How could it be shaken? This is impossible. Boom! While they were in a panic, Lin Sun had already swung his sword. His thick black long hair fluttered, and his figure was filled with divine brilliance. He was like a peerless dominator, looking down at the audience with immeasurable power. Under the slash of the terrifying sword intent, the battle formation could not bear the heavy burden and directly collapsed. Among them, there were more than a dozen Transcendent Realm Late experts who had no time to dodge and were killed on the spot by the vast sword chi. This swordsmanship is too terrifying. No, not only that, this boy's combat power is obviously stronger than those in the same realm. Is this the power of the Immortal Supreme? At this moment, everyone present was shocked, and their expressions changed suddenly. Damn it! In the distance, Tu Mohan's face was gloomy. Lin Sun's combat power was too heaven-defying. Even if he had never underestimated Lin Sun, he found that the power Lin Sun controlled had exceeded his expectations too much. Puff, puff, puff. On the battlefield, while Lin Sun broke the battle formation, Xia Ji waved the white bone spear and simply stabbed more than 10 times. Every time he stabbed, he would kill a Transcendent Realm Late expert. In the blink of an eye, those Transcendent Realm Late experts who were not killed by Lin Sun all died in Xia Ji's hands. During this period, the Transcendent Realm Late experts of the witch cult did not stop, but they were restrained by Lin Sun as soon as they rushed over. As a result, they could only watch their companions die tragically in Xia Ji's slaughter. Blood rained down. Angry shouts resounded between heaven and earth. As soon as the battle started, 36 Transcendent Realm Late experts of the witch cult were all killed. This bloody scene made Tu Mohan's eyes almost pop out, and his hair stood on end. As for Ji Kong and the other Zen experts who had not made a move in the distance, their expressions became solemn. So what if there were two people? Under such a siege, he killed a group of old monsters of the witch cult without any hesitation. No wonder this boy dared to appear at the front line of the Yuan cult. With the power of the Immortal Supreme, he is indeed too difficult to deal with, Ji Kong sighed softly. Other than Lin Sun, the sharp means that Xia Ji displayed also made him secretly shocked. Ji Kong, is your Zen cult going to watch from the sidelines and laugh at my witch cult? Not far away, Tu Mohan's expression was unfriendly. Ji Kong said solemnly, "Brother, don't be angry." As he spoke, he waved his hand. "Everyone, go and help the witch cult fellow. Remember, when you make a move, just deal with that woman. There's no need to hold back." Boom. Behind Ji Kong, a group of Zen cult old antiques who had been accumulating power for a long time burst out of their bodies one by one. The Brahma light was dazzling, and its divine power was immeasurable. They held Buddhist staffs, alms bowls, green lamps, rulers, knives, horsetail whisks, and other treasures. Like the Buddhas of the heavens, they rushed into the battlefield together and besieged Xia Ji. The battle broke out, turning the world upside down, and the sun and moon lost their brilliance. Lin Sun was besieged by a group of witch cult old antiques, while Xia Ji was restrained by a group of Zen cult old antiques who had just rushed into the battlefield. The battle was intense, and both sides showed no mercy. In the distance, Tu Mohan and Ji Kong watched the battle from afar, ready to make a move at any time. In the depths of the sky, deep in the thick ink-like tribulation clouds, there was a terrifying sound of tribulation thunder. It rumbled and rolled, causing the world to tremble. This eternal tribulation that belonged to Yu Beihai was finally coming. Seeing this scene, Tu Mohan and Ji Kong looked at each other. They both knew in their hearts that the battle that broke out between the three ancestral halls had just begun. I wish everyone a happy Mid-Autumn festival. The goldfish will continue to update after eating. Chapter 30-31. At the entrance of the primordial realm, Xian Feiling narrowed his eyes and looked solemn. He clearly saw the battle taking place in front of the city of 10,000 Absolute. When he saw Lin Sun and Xia Ji being restrained by the old antiques of witchcraft cult and Zen cult respectively, Xian Feiling's heart suddenly tightened. There were too many opponents. Moreover, the two ancestral halls hadn't used their trump cards yet, so it was very easy for many unpredictable accidents to happen. Xian Feiling took a deep breath and immediately made a decision. As long as Lin Sun showed signs of being unable to hold on, he would immediately save him. But soon, Xian Feiling was suddenly stunned. Gradually, he was dumbfounded. The reason was that Lin Sun was not suppressed on the battlefield, but he was suppressing those antiques of witchcraft cult by himself. This made Xian Feiling feel confused. The existence of the wizard religion at the peak of the good fortune realm is far from being comparable to the top 10 immortal giants of the 8th heaven. Now, more than 20 such old monsters used all their strength to deal with Lin Sun, but they were suppressed by Lin Sun alone, which was too unexpected. On the battlefield, with a bang, Lin Sun broke a red Tao soldier with one sword strike. The sword chi spread and directly hacked an antique into the air, and his body was split. If it weren't for the timely help of others, even his spirit might be lost. At this time, the antiques of witchcraft cult looked extremely solemn, and their eyes were full of shock and anger. Lin Sun's combat power was too powerful. Only when they really fought with him could they understand his horror. His whole body was like a towering mountain standing beyond the 9th heaven, indestructible and unshakable. Anyone who fought with him would feel powerless. Bastard! Someone was furious and rushed to kill Lin Sun. Lin Sun didn't even look at him and slashed with his sword. Bang! Even though this sword strike was blocked by the old man, the force that emanated from it forcefully shook the old man to the point the bones in his entire body exploded into pieces. Blood flowed from all 7 of his apertures, and he seemed as if he'd been struck by lightning. His body rumbled as it exploded into pieces, causing a rain of blood to spray down. "Hurry up! Let's stop him together!" Two seniors were seriously injured by Lin Sun with a single strike, which shocked and enraged many people. They didn't dare to attack rashly, but cooperated with others to attack Lin Sun with all their strength. Even so, it still couldn't trap Lin Sun, let alone kill him. The reason was that Lin Sun was too strong at this moment. He was like a god that charged through this expanse of the heavens and the earth. He was murderous, cold, and emotionless, and every single move he made caused those seniors to feel a form of unprecedented pressure. All of this came from his terrifying combat strength that was rarely seen in the world. He could be said to be the #1 expert beneath the Eternal Realm, so he didn't take mere cultivators at the same realm seriously since a long time ago. In the past, when he was still in the Transcendent Realm initial stage, he could already battle across realms and kill opponents in the Great Perfection Realm. When he was in the Transcendent Realm late stage, he was able to kill a group of 10 Clan Battle Alliance's Great Perfection Realm elders alone outside the 6th heaven. And now, he had also reached the Great Perfection Realm. He'd even refined and absorbed 80% of the Nirvana Order energy, and his eternal laws weren't inferior to the Divine Rank Order energy at all. Under such circumstances, could anyone in the Eternal True World who was at the same realm as him go against him? In less than 10 minutes of time, 2 seniors had been crushed on the spot, and over 10 were injured. Blood dyed the sky red. The heavens and the earth had fallen into chaos. This battle was too intense, and it could be said to be rarely seen throughout the ages. If it wasn't for these seniors possessing extremely strong reserves and possessing numerous life-saving trump cards that helped them deal with the danger they faced at the critical moment, then the casualties they suffered would have been even heavier. On the other hand, Lin Sun revealed an aura of supremacy in the entire world, and he seemed to possess an arrogant bearing as if he was the only one in the entire world. All treasures were unable to approach him. All restrictions were unable to obstruct his footstep. All techniques were countered by the divine might of the eternal laws. If this scene was witnessed by all the cultivators in the world, they would probably be unable to believe that Lin Sun was actually so domineering while fighting all the seniors of the shaman sect's ancestral court by himself. In fact, Xian Failing, who was witnessing this scene, was already shocked speechless. In the past, he only managed to find out about the battle that happened in the 6th heaven. He only heard that Lin Sun had annihilated a group of Transcendent Realm Great Perfection existences of the 10 Clan Battle Alliance. But after all, it was just hearsay. And now, he witnessed it with his own eyes. The shock he felt was especially strong. When Xian Failing noticed the battle situation on Xia Ji's side, he couldn't help but gasp. Every single one of the Zen sect seniors was extremely difficult to deal with. The Brahma light on their bodies surged into the heavens and the earth, and they cooperated with each other tacitly. They besieged Xia Ji like waves. Xian Failing asked himself if he was in such a situation, he would probably have to fight with his life on the line, and it was highly likely that he would have already died. But Xia Ji was different. Her figure flickered like a stream of light, drifting erratically, and no one could catch her movements. Even if she was heavily besieged, she was still able to narrowly avoid the overwhelming attacks. When she attacked, it was extremely simple and direct. She swung the white bone spear as if it was her own arm. She stabbed, flicked, hacked, shook, swept, smashed, curled, collapsed. All of them were the most simple and direct combat methods, without any fancy trick. But the horror of its power was enough to make any Transcendent Realm Great Perfection existence shudder. The battle had only lasted for a moment, but 3 opponents had died in Xia Ji's hands, and more than a dozen were seriously injured. Her strength was comparable to Lin Sun's. Even if Lin Sun was heaven-defying, Xian Failing could still understand it. After all, everyone knew that he had the immortal supreme power. But Xia Zhi's combat power was also so tyrannical that Xian Feiling couldn't understand it at all. He was so stunned that he looked dull. All of this was also seen by Tu Muhan and Ji Kong. Tu Muhan's expression became more and more livid and gloomy, while Ji Kong's expression became more and more dignified. Seeing that as the battle continued, the situation of the two ancestral halls became more and more unbearable, Tu Muhan could no longer hold back and shouted, "Use the will manifestation!" His voice shook the universe. Suddenly, a witch cult expert on the battlefield waved his sleeve. A piece of black beast bone exploded in the void, and a stalwart figure emerged, exuding the aura of the eternal realm. He was clad in beast skin, barefooted, and his long hair was unkempt. However, his eyes were more frightening than lightning, and his bronze-colored skin bulged as if it was made of bronze liquid. With his appearance, the world trembled violently. Is Yu Beihai crossing the retribution? After the majestic figure like an ancient barbarian god appeared, his eyes looked into the depths of the sky, and his rough and resolute expression was full of coldness and indifference. In the depths of the sky, the tribulation thunder was rolling, like hundreds of millions of giant pythons rolling in it. The brilliant tribulation light was flowing, piercing people's mind and soul. Wu Huanzhen. Xian Feiling was shocked. Wu Huanzhen, one of the witch cult's heaven priests, was a supreme figure who had proved the way for countless years. In terms of cultivation time, even Yuan Xian, the master of Yuanshu Pavilion, was inferior to him. Even in the ninth heaven, Wu Huanzhen's reputation is extremely resounding. It was not an exaggeration to say that he was a living mythical figure. Heaven Priest, please take action and capture Lin Sun. In the distance, Tu Muhan said solemnly. However, Wu Huanzhen's eyes were locked on Lin Sun, and his voice was indifferent. Where is Tai Xian? Even if he doesn't appear in person, his will should be here. As he spoke, the witch cult's transcendent realm old monsters who besieged Lin Sun had retreated far away. Lin Sun did not chase after them. He looked at Wu Huanzhen indifferently and said, "There is no need for Tai Xian Pavilion Master to deal with you. I alone am enough." Arrogant. Tu Muhan couldn't help but laugh out of anger. A young man in transcendent realm great perfection, even if he had the immortal supreme power, who gave him the courage to provoke the will of an eternal realm. The other witch cult old men also sneered. This Lin Sun. He was simply overestimating himself. Lin Sun said slowly. It can be seen that the great defeat suffered by the Ten-Clan Battle Alliance in the sixth heaven didn't teach you a lesson. Otherwise, I'm afraid you wouldn't dare to use a mere eternal realm's Dharma image. Everyone almost thought that they had heard wrong. Just an eternal realm? Just? Lin Sun's tone was so arrogant. At this time, even Wu Huanzhen's will couldn't help but frown. However, he didn't seem to care about a junior like Lin Sun at all. He looked into the distance and said indifferently, Tai Xian, if your will doesn't come out, don't blame me for being impolite. Obviously, he believed that Lin Sun dared to be so arrogant because he had a backer behind him. And this backer was Tai Xian. Lin Sun couldn't help but laugh. Prejudice was arrogance. Wu Huanzhen's attitude reminded him of the eternal realm's will that he killed in the sixth heaven. It seemed that they all had such a high and mighty attitude. Thinking about it, which eternal realm figure in this world could think that a young man in transcendent realm could kill the will of an eternal realm? The Ten-Clan Battle Alliance did not expect it. Obviously, Witch Cult and Zen Cult did not expect it either. Otherwise, Wu Huanzhen would not act like this. If so, I will force you to show up. A cold light flashed in Wu Huanzhen's eyes, and he made his move. Boom. He directly stretched out his hand and grasped in the air. The terrifying palm power covered the sky, entwined with countless scarlet and frightening eternal way profundities. It was extremely terrifying. At this moment, even Xian Feiling's heart was in his throat, and his fists were clenched. At this moment, Lin Sun did not dodge, but rushed up to meet it. Boom. He also struck with his palm. Under the incredulous and horrified gaze of the crowd, Wu Huanzhen's palm, which was enough to make any transcendent realm desperate, was forcibly broken. The sound of the explosion resounded, and the sky was full of light rain. Lin Sun had moved to the front of Wu Huanzhen's will. Wu Huanzhen was obviously shocked, and his pupils shrank. This scene had truly overturned everything he knew, and he didn't dare believe it. However, as an eternal realm existence, even a Dharma image of willpower was extremely terrifying. At this moment, he directly used his killing move. He pressed out his hands, and a terrifying blood-colored seal condensed and pressed down on Lin Sun. Boom! Lin Sun waved his fist to meet it head-on. In the earth-shattering collision sound, the blood-red seal cracked and exploded. Lin Sun's figure shook slightly, and then the 5 Tao forms rushed out together. They were like 5 god dominators appearing out of thin air, bombarding Wu Huanzhen's will. Caught off guard, Wu Huanzhen was suddenly besieged. He shouted again and again, madly attacking, using all kinds of supreme magic skills. The power was peerlessly terrifying, which was enough to easily kill anyone under the Eternal Realm. But all these were in vain in front of Lin Sun. They were all blocked and resolved one by one, unable to hurt Lin Sun at all. Lin Sun, who had the upper hand, did not hesitate. His body and doppelganger attacked with all their strength. Their killing intent was monstrous, and their power was overwhelming. Wu Huanzhen was completely suppressed. This scene made everyone present dumbfounded, and their hearts trembled. How was this possible? Boom! In just a few blinks of an eye, a shocking explosion resounded. Wu Huanzhen's will was forcibly smashed by Lin Sun at this moment. The monthly votes fell out of the top 20. During the period of double monthly votes, the competition is very fierce. Please support me. Chapter 30-32. Boom. The horrifying turbulence of the Great Path spread. Wu Huanzhen was blown up. His spiritual will exploded into a rain of light, surging between heaven and earth. Everyone present felt as if they were struck by lightning. Their eyes widened, and they were all shocked by this scene. Tu Mohan's scalp was numb, and his hands and feet were cold. Lin Sun, a transcendent realm great perfection existence, destroyed the spiritual will of an eternal realm existence of their witch cult with his own combat power. The impact of this was too great, and Tu Mohan was in disbelief. The witch cult people around him were also shocked, and their faces were pale. After living for so long and experiencing countless bloodshed, their state of mind had long been tempered to the point of being indifferent. However, at this moment, they still felt terrified, and a chill ran down their spines. The Eternal Realm was a supreme existence that stood above the heavens, overlooking the changes of the era. Who would dare to believe that the power belonging to the Eternal Realm would be easily destroyed by such a young transcendent realm cultivator? He was really killed by this kid. Xian Failing couldn't help but take a deep breath. He was extremely shocked. Puff! Suddenly, a muffled explosion was heard, followed by a splash of blood. Among the Zen cult old antiques who were besieging Summer Solstice, one of them was pierced by Summer Solstice's white-boned spear. His corpse was lifted into the air and then exploded. This old antique was shocked by the scene of Lin Sun killing Wu Huanzhen's spiritual will. His mind was shaken for a moment, and Summer Solstice seized the opportunity to kill him on the spot. This bloody scene caused the expressions of everyone present to go pale. At this time, Lin Sun had already killed those old antiques of the witch cult again. Ji Kong, if you don't use your trump card, I'm afraid we will all be stopped outside the Yuan cult today, Tu Mohan said in a hoarse voice. Then let's decide the winner in one round. Ji Kong put his palms together, and his expression was solemn. All right. Tu Mohan took a deep breath and took out an ancient beast-skin scroll from his sleeve. Sacrifice. The ancient scroll burned under the sky. Immediately after, the spiritual will of the Eternal Realm appeared out of thin air, and there were as many as 6 of them. These spiritual will were of men and women, old and young, but without exception, their auras were terrifying. The entire sea was silent and oppressive. The terrifying pressure even affected the chaos of the rules of heaven and earth, and the power of the Great Path showed signs of chaos. 6 Eternal Realm Dharma Idols. This was the strongest trump card left behind by the ancestors of the witchcraft ancestral court for countless years. Originally, this power would only be used if the witchcraft ancestral court was destroyed. But now it had been used by Tu Mu. This was not the end. Almost at the same time, Ji Kong took out a golden lotus seat with a solemn expression. Along with a burst of grand and boundless Sanskrit chanting resounded, one after another, majestic figures that were like Buddhas appeared on the golden lotus platform. A total of 8 people. Every single one of them was the will left behind by the sages of the Dhyana sect over countless years, and they all possessed unparalleled might. They were either holding flowers and smiling, or glaring angrily, or bemoaning the state of the universe and pitying the fate of mankind, or silent and quiet, or solemn and solemn. Along with their appearance, the heavens and the earth were dyed in a layer of vast and dazzling Buddhist light. Lin Sun pulled Xia Ji to his side at once, and his expression became slightly dignified. The 6 Eternal Realm Dharma Idols of the Witchcraft Sect. When the 8 Eternal Realm Dharma Idols of the Dhyana sect gathered together, there were 14 of them. Undoubtedly, in order to deal with the Yuan sect this time, the 2 ancestral courts of the Witchcraft sect and the Dhyana sect had put in a lot of effort. They took out all the trump cards that they had accumulated for countless years. Such a lineup, in addition to the 9th heaven, I'm afraid you can't find a second one. It was too terrifying. At this time, the transcendent realm great perfection of the Witchcraft sect and the Dhyana sect had already retreated. Even they were shocked when they saw this scene. Originally, such a force would only be used after killing their way into the Yuan sect. No one expected that in this infinite star sea, just because of Lin Sun and Xia Ji, the 2 ancestral courts were forced to use such a trump card. Oh no! When he saw this scene, Xian Feiling couldn't sit still anymore. He rushed out of the Yuan sect's entrance and shouted, "Do you really intend to fight with my Yuan sect to the death?" His voice rumbled over the infinite star sea. When the voice sounded, Xian Feiling had already moved over and stood beside Lin Sun, glaring angrily. Even he didn't expect that the 2 ancestral courts would be so desperate to deal with Lin Sun and Xia Ji. Tu Muhan's voice was hoarse and old. "Xian Feiling, you finally showed up. But I'm afraid you're courting death if you come alone." Ji Kong said solemnly, "We came here just to take Lin Sun away, but we didn't expect his combat power to be so powerful that we had to use such means. It's really a helpless move." Xian Feiling looked cold and said, "A helpless move? You came to the Yuan sect to commit murder, and you call that helpless? When will your Dhyana sect stop being so despicable?" The 14 Eternal Realm Dharma Idols looked at all this indifferently. It seemed that they didn't care about these arguments and didn't bother to refute. Now that things have come to this, it's time to see the result. Tu Mohan looked grim. Right now, your Yuan sect only has 2 choices. First, hand over Lin Sun, and we'll leave immediately. Second, let's see what we can do. His words were full of murderous intent. Ji Kong looked into the depths of the sky and said, "Now Pavilion Leader Yu Beihai is proving the eternal way. At this critical moment, your Yuan sect doesn't have the protection of the divine level order. Once we break in, your foundation will be severely damaged, and it will even affect Pavilion Leader Yu Beihai's process of proving the eternal way. I hope you can think twice." Xian Feiling's expression became gloomier and he said, "With these 14 Eternal Realm Dharma idols?" Tu Mohan said coldly, "If Tai Xian dares to use his power, someone will deal with him. You should know that if things really go to that point, the Yuan sect's casualties will be far more than this." Ji Kong said, "Taoist friend, in the end, Lin Sun is the successor of Fang Siyuan. Are you really going to destroy the Yuan sect's foundation of the Great Way for countless years to protect him? Xian Feiling's expression became more and more indifferent, and he said word by word, "If we can't even protect a deputy pavilion leader of our Yuan sect, what's the use of the Great Way?" Tu Mohan sneered, "It seems like we can only fight to the end." Lin Sun, who had been silent all this while, said indifferently, "I just destroyed an eternal realm Dharma idol, and now you're being arrogant again. Do you people of the sorcerer cult not learn from your mistakes?" Tu Mohan's expression immediately turned extremely ugly. However, his heart was filled with awe. He quickly told the 6 eternal realm Dharma images of Lin Sun killing Wu Huanjin's Dharma image. At the same time, Ji Kong also told the Zen sect's eternal realm antiques about the previous battle. For a moment, 14 Eternals, the realm Will and Dharma all looked at Lin Sun with a touch of amazement. "Senior, please retreat. I'll take care of this myself." Taking a deep breath, Lin Sun stepped forward with cold eyes. "If I lose, I will die. If I win, none of them can escape today. Life or death." It was very simple, just one battle and it would be decided. "Summer solstice, why don't you watch from the side?" Lin Sun said softly, but there was no room for refusal in his words. Summer solstice was silent for a moment. Without saying a word, she retreated far away. However, her hand was still tightly holding the white bone spear. Of course, she would not just watch Lin Sun die. When Xian Feiling was about to say something, Lin Sun had already taken a step forward. His tall figure surged with fighting and killing intent, and his whole momentum changed. "Lin Sun is standing here. You'd better come at me together." His dark eyes were cold as he glanced at the 14 eternal realm Dharma images. His indifferent voice resounded between heaven and earth. Witnessing this scene, Xian Feiling seemed to have finally made a decision and silently retreated. "You're courting death." In the sorcerer cult's camp, a man who looked like a teenager was the first to leap forward and punch. Boom! As the punch burst forth, heaven and earth shook and the universe reversed. It was as if this punch had forcibly broken the shackles of the heaven and earth rules, and it was extremely tyrannical. The strong fist energy glowed like dusk, giving people a sense of despair as if the world had ended and doomsday had come. It was shocking. Many old fogies who had transcended the exceptional realm felt their hearts throbbing, and their eyes were stinging. This was the power of the eternal realm. It controlled the heaven and earth rules, and it was immortal and eternal. This punch could easily kill any one of them. Lin Sun's original body stood there, with the immortal law flowing and turning into a big abyss that covered the sky, making his power obscure and mysterious. Boom! He waved his sleeve, and the fist energy glowing with dusk suddenly exploded. It collapsed and dissipated inch by inch in front of him, unable to hurt him at all. This caused the young man's pupils to constrict. The other eternal realm Dharma images present were also moved. Sure enough, this young man had a heaven-defying combat strength that could not be measured by common sense. They looked at each other and attacked together at this moment. How terrifying would it be when 14 eternal realm Dharma idols joined forces to attack? The vast infinite star sea collapsed in an instant, the seawater completely evaporated, and the void between heaven and earth collapsed like a piece of paper. Everything fell into a terrible scene of destruction. It was like the end of the world. All kinds of supreme magical methods whistled out, and the eternal Taoist light emerged, as if blotting out the sky and covering the earth. Countless shocking visions appeared. At that moment, everyone had an illusion that the world was collapsing, the sun and the moon were collapsing, and everything would cease to exist in such a terrible killing. It was too horrible. Everyone present felt suffocated, and a chill ran down their backs. Their minds were awed. In the face of such a terrible attack, Lin Sun's expression was as indifferent as before. Only in the depths of his indifferent eyes, a burning fighting intent emerged, and his spirit was completely boiling. An indescribable burning, killing intent spread and raged in his chest, stimulating every inch of his skin to seem to be eager to fight and to feast on the enemy's blood. This battle. He wouldn't hold anything back anymore. Chapter 30-33. Kill. Lin Sun rushed up violently, and the 5 Tao bodies were all dazzling, attacking together with himself. Boom. At the moment when the fierce battle broke out, Lin Sun and the 5 Tao bodies were shaken back dozens of feet, and their auras were tumbling. With his current combat power, it was not too difficult for him to kill an Eternal Realms Dharma image. But when facing the suppression of the 14 Eternal Realms Dharma images, it was obviously a little difficult. Even if he had used his cultivation to the extreme, he was still shaken by such a siege. Xian Feiling's heart tightened. Xia Ji looked as calm as before, but her clothes were fluttering, and her aura was flowing. Obviously, she was ready. In the distance, Tu Mohan, Ji Kong, and others breathed a sigh of relief, but they could not help but feel shocked. There was no one blow to kill, not to mention a serious injury. The 14 Eternal Realms Dharma images only shook Lin Sun back. When witnessing this scene, who could not be shocked by Lin Sun's combat power? Who dared to believe that this was the power of a young man in transcendent realm great perfection? Boom! The sky collapsed, and all things withered. After the 14 Eternal Realms Dharma images attacked, they did not intend to give Lin Sun any chance to breathe, each more powerful than the other. Some controlled the divine whip of order, and the golden light of law whipped the world. Some controlled the wind, fire, thunder, and lightning, which evolved into the eternal truth and raged the world. Some used the sword Qi, and each sword imprinted with the ultimacy could collapse the sky and cross the sun and the moon. There were also strong axe shadows, mysterious saber Qi, bright spear lights, domineering spear shadows, and so on, all of which could be called the strongest in the world. If it were someone else, he would have been killed in an instant. In the blink of an eye, Lin Sun and his 5 Tao bodies were besieged. Boom! The sound of Tao was like thunder in the 9th heaven, and the destructive fluctuations of the battle spread and raged. The scene of the battle shocked everyone present and made them break out in a cold sweat. It was no exaggeration to say that if such a battle took place in the outside world, it would destroy countless mountains, rivers, and cities, and even the origin of a big world. And it was in this siege that Lin Sun felt unprecedented pressure. Even if his combat power was against the natural order, even if his immortal law had reached the point where he could compete with the power of the divine level order. However, he was only in the transcendent realm. In the face of the encirclement of the wills and dharma forms of the eternal realm experts, it was not as easy as when he dealt with Wu Huanjun. This scene was also seen by the people outside the battlefield, especially Tu Mohan, Ji Kong, and the others. They didn't dare imagine how terrifying his might would be if a young man like Lin Sun, who possessed the potential to become an eternal exalt, was allowed to attain eternity. At that time, not to mention the ancestral halls of the witchcraft sect and the Zen sect, even the eternal gods of the 9th heaven are destined to be unable to eat and sleep in peace. Fortunately, Lin Sun was already tied up and showed signs of being in a terrible state, causing Tu Mohan, Ji Kong, and the others to feel a wave of relief. Be careful of Xian Feiling. Yuan Church must have many trump cards that they haven't used yet. Besides, they won't just watch Lin Sun be killed. Tu Mohan quickly transmitted his voice. At this time, who else can save Lin Sun except for the Eternal Realm original body? With the current foundation of Yuan Church, at most, they can only send out a few more Eternal Realm wills and Dharma forms. This is destined to be unable to change the situation of the battle. Ji Kong's expression was calm and indifferent. What's more, apart from these, does Brother Tu have any other trump cards? Tu Mohan's eyes flickered. He said, "We're in the same boat. After all, we're going to deal with the entire Yuan Church. If we don't make sufficient preparations, how can we shake its foundation?" While they were talking, there was suddenly a shocking change in the distant battlefield. Lin Sun, who had been suppressed for a long time, used the Gate of Exile at this moment. Boom! A huge space-time crack appeared in the sky. The space-time door with a range of thousands of feet covered the ground, producing a frightening devouring aura. In an instant, the Eternal Realm wills and Dharma forms were slightly stagnant. Their expressions were solemn, but they didn't panic. Tut! A Dharma form that looked like an old man shouted and took out a bloody animal skin flag, which rose into the sky. Bursts of blood-red light emerged from the animal skin flag, and the mysterious power of time manifested, blocking the devouring power of the Gate of Exile. The Iron-Blood Chaotic World flag. Xian Feiling's pupils shrank. This was one of the most precious treasures of the witch cult, a real eternal Tao weapon with terrifying power. It was said that when this flag was unfolded, its power could instantly cover a big world and easily refine the rules of the world. At the same time, a mighty Brahma light emerged, and a golden Buddhist scripture spread out in the void. Countless obscure and mysterious Sanskrit shone brightly, deducing the eternal essence, and blocked the power of the Gate of Exile. The 8 groups of Maha Sutra. This was the most precious treasure of the Zen sect. It was said that it was refined by an eternal realm with the rules of Buddhism. The scripture was divided into 8 parts, each of which was branded with a supreme essence. It could control wind, thunder, earth, fire, and time. Compared with the Iron-Blood Chaotic World flag, this treasure was absolutely not inferior. In the blink of an eye, Lin Sun's Gate of Exile was blocked by 2 Eternal Tao weapons, and the 14 Eternal Realm Dharma forms dissolved Lin Sun's killing move safely. This scene made Xian Feiling's heart skip a beat. He knew very well that Lin Sun did not have a treasure like the Eternal Tao weapon. How could he fight with those well-prepared old guys? Lin Sun narrowed his eyes slightly, and without hesitation, he shrunk the Gate of Exile into a shadow and condensed it on the abyssal sword cauldron. Rumble, all kinds of killing power rushed towards Lin Sun, but as soon as they arrived in front of him, they were all swallowed up by the abyssal sword cauldron, disappearing like a clay ox in the sea. This strange scene stunned the Eternal Realm Dharma forms, as if they could not believe it. This was the magical effect of the Gate of Exile. With its power attached to the abyssal sword cauldron, all the attacking power was swallowed into the world of exile. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Lin Sun and his 5 doppelgangers rushed forward. Kill! The Eternal Realm Dharma forms joined forces to attack. But apart from the Iron-Blood Flag of Chaos and the 8 groups of Maha Sutra that could shake the abyssal sword cauldron, all other attacks were swallowed up by the Gate of Exile. In other words, the abyssal sword cauldron floating above Lin Sun's head at this moment, in addition to fighting against the power of the 2 Eternal Tao weapons, other people's killing means would be swallowed up by the Gate of Exile without him having to fight against them. This undoubtedly reduced the pressure on him. It seemed that he was fighting against 14 Dharma forms, but in fact, it was no different from fighting against 2. The only drawback was that compared to before, even though the Gate of Exile had shrunk countless times, its power was rapidly consumed because of the terrifying power it had to swallow. In the past, it could last for an hour, but now it could only last for a moment at most. But Lin Sun did not care. Taking advantage of this opportunity, he rushed out with all his strength and broke through the siege in an instant, launching an all-out attack on a Dharma form of witchcraft. This Dharma image was that of a man in a beast robe. His figure was imposing, and his combat strength was peerlessly ferocious. He controlled the energy of the laws that seemed like a divine whip of order, and every single strike he struck out caused the heavens and the earth to collapse. But at this moment, his attack was completely swallowed up by the abyssal sword cauldron. No matter how domineering the attack was, it posed no threat to Lin Sun at all. Crack! In just a few blinks of an eye, the man in the beast robe was smashed and dissipated into a rain of light. The other Eternal Realm Dharma forms were all shocked and could not believe their eyes. Damn it! How could this be? In the distance, Tu Mu and the other old monsters of witchcraft all changed their expressions. Before, Lin Sun was restrained and suppressed in every way, but now he had launched a counterattack. It was even to the extent that only those two eternal Tao armaments were capable of suppressing his attacks in the current battlefield. The abilities of the others would be completely devoured by him. This was too strange and terrible. Who could believe it? Xian Feiling quietly released a secret talisman that he had prepared in his right hand in his sleeve. He was ready to take action. But obviously it was not needed for the time being. At the same time, Xian Feiling noticed that Xia Ji's qi, which had accumulated to the extreme, was gradually easing. Obviously, she had planned to take action just like him. Boom. The battle was still breaking out. Losing a Dharma form of will made others change their strategy immediately. On the side of witchcraft, led by the Dharma form of will that controlled the Iron Blood banner of chaos, they attacked Lin Sun together. The same was true on the side of Zen sect. They used all their strength to control the 8 groups of Maha Sutra to attack Lin Sun. However, there were only 2 treasures. Although they were not afraid of the power of the Gate of Exile on the Abyssal Sword Cauldron, they did not pose a great threat to Lin Sun. Boom. However, good times did not last long. Before long, the power of the Gate of Exile on the Abyssal Sword Cauldron collapsed. At this moment, the Dharma forms of will seized the opportunity and attacked with all their strength without hesitation. They all realized that the forbidden magic Lin Sun used was not invincible. As long as they kept attacking, it would dissipate, and Lin Sun would have to consume a lot of energy to do so. Great! Tu Mohan and the others could not help but cry out. Their eyes lit up. What else could Lin Sun do to reverse the situation? Ji Kong and the others could not help but feel relieved. Fortunately, such a magic could not last for long. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Boom. However, at this moment, Lin Sun used the Gate of Exile again. The space-time portal with a range of thousands of meters instantly shrank into a shadow and was imprinted on the Abyssal Sword Cauldron. As a result, except for the attacks of the 2 eternal Tao weapons, all other attacks were swallowed up. But it was under such circumstances that an Eternal Realm Dharma form of Zen sect laughed and said, "Everyone, his chi activity has weakened by almost 30%. It is impossible for him to use this power continuously." His words made the others look much more relaxed. 30% of his physical strength could only be exchanged for a moment of magic power. This undoubtedly meant that with Lin Sun's cultivation, he could only use this method 3 times. However, Lin Sun did not seem to care about this at all. At this moment, he attacked brazenly and directly attacked the laughing Dharma form of will. P.S. Thank you for the reward from the leader of the Will of C. Thank you for your support and monthly votes since last night. Goldfish decided to end the Mid-Autumn Festival early. If nothing unexpected happened, she would add more chapters today, tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. Chapter 30-34. The one who laughed was an Eternal Realm Dharma form of the Zen sect. His Dharma name was Ji Ming. A long time ago, he had a world-shaking reputation. He had also discussed Tao with many Eternal Realm figures in the 9th heaven. Although his original body was no longer in the Zen sect, the Dharma form he had left behind was still extremely powerful. When Lin Sun attacked, he did not hesitate to use his strongest defensive means. Buzz. A layer of rippling golden light turned into a kasaya that covered his whole body, emitting dazzling eternal Brahman light. Hell kasaya. It could resist the power of rules. Boom. However, when Lin Sun and his doppelganger attacked, the terrifying power made Ji Ming tremble, and the Hell Kasaya shook violently. His face changed. How could he be so strong? Boom. Before he could react, an overwhelming barrage of attacks came right at him. During this time, the other Eternal Realm Dharma forms also attacked, but except for the power of the 2 Eternal Tao weapons, all other attacks were swallowed by the Abyssal Sword Cauldron. And just two eternal Tao weapons could not do anything to Lin Sun. In a flash, Ji Ming suffered a serious impact, and his Dharma form showed traces of cracks. It was a ghastly sight. Boom! In the end, the Hell Kasaya that covered his body exploded, and the Dharma form that had created the Eternal Realm Dharma form was crushed into pieces and scattered like rain. Another Eternal Realm Dharma form had fallen. Lin Sun's overbearing and ferocious fighting posture made Tu Muhan, Ji Kong, and the others shudder. In such a situation, Lin Sun could still kill two Eternal Realm Dharma forms. How could they remain calm when faced with such a heaven-defying power? But they could all see that Lin Sun's chi was not as strong as before. Obviously, because he had used his talent power twice in a row, his physical strength was greatly consumed. This meant that when the talent power he used this time dissipated, he was destined to be unable to fight again. On the battlefield, the Eternal Realm Dharma forms also noticed this and stepped up their attack. Rumble, the world was in chaos. The vast infinite star sea no longer existed, and the battle became more and more intense. As the enemies expected, Lin Sun's gate of exile quickly collapsed and disappeared. But before they could rejoice, Lin Sun swallowed a drop of innate divine dew, and his almost depleted stamina was instantly restored to its peak state. Seeing such a shocking development, the Eternal Realm Dharma idols couldn't help but stare in shock and anger. How could this be? Tu Mohan and the others were dumbfounded, and they were so depressed that they almost coughed out a mouthful of blood. Originally, they thought that Lin Sun would be captured, but they did not expect that Lin Sun would have such a shocking change. There was a strange look in Xian Feiling's eyes. Back then, he was the one who handed the 10 innate divine nectar to Lin Sun. Hence, he knew the reason why Lin Sun would have such a drastic change. At this moment, the situation on the battlefield changed again. Except for the two who wielded two Eternal Tao weapons, the other Eternal Realm wills and Dharma images chose to defend instead of attacking. Moreover, he didn't give Lin any chance to entangle and attack at all. Clearly, they knew that as long as Lin Sun used the banished gate again, they, who did not have an Eternal Tao soldier, would not have any chance to attack Lin Sun. Kill! The one who wielded the Iron-Blood Chaotic World flag was called Xuerong, and the one who wielded the 8 sections of Maha Sutra was called Xingdian. The two became the main fighting force, and they attacked Lin Sun with all their might. But to everyone's surprise, Lin Sun did not use the banished gate again, because the old guys had already seen through the mysteries of this innate divine ability. If he wanted to use it again, he would have to spend a lot of effort. Seeing that Lin Sun did not use the banished gate, the other Eternal Realm wills and Dharma images naturally did not miss the opportunity to attack. They surrounded him and attacked with all their might. They had all made up their minds. Once Lin Sun used the forbidden innate divine ability, they would retreat far away and defend instead of attacking. They did not believe that they could not defeat him under such a siege. However, their plan was doomed to fail. Seeing the Eternal Realm wills and Dharma images rushing towards him, Lin Sun took a deep breath and, with a clang, held the Tao sword in his hand. Swish! The sword swept out. Ignoring the shackles of space and tearing through the power of laws, the sword chi spread out like a dreamy and magnificent ripple. It was ethereal, unfathomable, and unbelievably fast. There was no murderous aura at all, but when they sensed the sword chi, an indescribable chill surged in everyone's hearts. It was like the light of tribulation from the heavens. Bang! The Tao technique unleashed by one of the ancients dissipated soundlessly when it came into contact with the sword chi. Bang! Bang! After that, the various attacks of the other seniors were crushed like bubbles as soon as they came into contact with the sword chi. Only 2 Eternal Tao weapons managed to block the sword chi, but they also produced a violent buzzing sound, causing Xuerong and Xingdian's pupils to shrink. No! Suddenly, an Eternal Realm wills and Dharma image cried out in shock and anger. He stretched out his hand and slapped out with the intention of blocking that strand of sword chi. But who would have imagined that the sword Qi would instead easily slash apart the force of his palm, and its remaining momentum didn't reduce in the slightest as it slashed onto his hand. Suddenly, the sword Qi spread and reversed time, and the power it released cut off the Taoism of his Dharma image. The Dharma image was condensed by the power of the Great Way. Now that it was cut off, it was like a bubble, and it turned into a rain of light and vanished. All the people present were shocked by this strange and unpredictable scene. The Blade of Time. It's the forbidden innate divine ability that the Skyspan Lord mastered. Tu Mohan roared in rage, and his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. The gate of exile that Lin Sun had displayed before had caught them off guard. Now the power of the Blade of Time had reappeared in the world, and it made their faces change completely. Swish, swish, swish. Lin Sun didn't delay at all. He controlled the Taoist sword and attacked with all his strength with the 5 Taoist bodies. Every sword strike was like an illusory flowing light, crisscrossing and mysterious. In the past 18 years, he had thoroughly understood the mystery of the Blade of Time, and he had already mastered the power of this magic to the peak. In short, the power of the Blade of Time was like that of a Taoist soldier, which could be used for a quarter of an hour. Anyone who was swept by it would be reverse time and deprived of his Taoism. Even Taoist magic and treasures would be reversed to their original form by the power of time. For example, if a saber was swept by it, it would be reversed to the embryo state before it was refined, which could be called a forbidden power. Boom, the battle began to become fierce. No one had expected that Lin Sun had mastered so many forbidden skills. In the following time, the sword Qi flashed across the battlefield. From time to time, the eternal realm wills and Dharma images were hit, and then they collapsed and disappeared in an instant. In a flash, another 4 eternal realm wills and Dharma images disappeared. Why is this happening? Why? The strange scenes irritated Tu Mohan and the others to the point their eyes almost popped out of their sockets, and their pupils were bloodshot. They couldn't imagine how the battle could develop to such an extent. A gloomy and livid expression appeared between the brows of Ji Kong and the other seniors of the Zen sect, and their Zen hearts that were firm like a rock were shaken and roiled. Any existence that had stepped into the eternal realm could resist the attack of the power of time. Otherwise, they couldn't be called eternal at all. But obviously, the Blade of Time that Lin Sun utilized was different. It was a forbidden magic that could reverse time and cut off one's Taoism. It was far from something that could be compared to the simple power of time. Boom! In next to no time, another Dharma image dissipated like a bubble, and only 6 eternal realm wills and Dharma images were left on the battlefield. Only then did Lin Sun's Blade of Time collapse and disappear. He took a deep breath and released the Blade of Time again. Witnessing this scene, the remaining 6 eternal realm wills and Dharma images looked gloomy and felt that it was extremely difficult. They had mobilized 14 Dharma images and 2 eternal Tao soldiers, but they still couldn't suppress a young transcendent realm like Lin Sun. Instead, he killed 8 of them one after another. This cruel reality also gave them a heavy blow. Tu Mohan, Ji Kong, and the others never expected this result. This time, their 2 ancestral halls had joined forces to deal with Yuan's sect, and they were well prepared. But now, they were blocked by Lin Sun in the Infinite Star Sea before they could even enter the Yuan realm. Moreover, up until now, they had lost a total of 9 eternal realm wills, including Wu Huanjin's Dharma image. And looking at Yuan's sect's side, so far, not a single soldier had been injured. If this continues, it will really not be worth it. Tu Mohan's voice was hoarse and low, and his eyes were flashing with crazy killing intent. Everyone could see that if this situation continued, more and more eternal realm wills and Dharma images would be destroyed by Lin Sun. In that case, I'll just use my trump card. Ji Kong took a deep breath and seemed to have made a decision. Okay. Tu Mohan gritted his teeth and raised his hand to sacrifice a beast bone necklace. At the same time, He recited an obscure and strange spell. Buzz. The beast bone necklace glowed, and the world suddenly shook violently. Several eternal realm wills and dharma images of witchcraft that were fighting fiercely with Lin Sun all trembled, and an unconcealable fanaticism appeared on their faces. At the same time, Lin Sun's pupils shrank. Boom! The sound of Tao, like the beginning of chaos, resounded, and the beast bone necklace exploded. Immediately after, the turbulent aura of chaos spread like a landslide and a tsunami. In the aura of chaos, a thin, tall figure condensed. At that moment, it was like a supreme ruler who had been silent for thousands of years had awakened. An indescribably terrifying pressure spread to the 9 heavens and 10 earths, oppressing everyone to breathe. Swish! Lin Sun withdrew immediately. He felt a piercing sense of danger, as if a sharp edge was pressed against his whole body, making his hair stand on end. At the same time, Tu Mohan and the other old monsters of the witchcraft cult bowed as if they were humble disciples and successors. They said respectfully, "Ancestors' Dharma image, please come to the world." More updates. Chapter 30-35. The world was dead silent. The 6 Eternal Realm experts who had fought fiercely with Lin Sun before all retreated with relief. They stared at the tall, skinny figure that had appeared out of nowhere. Shock and even reverence filled their faces. It was also an Eternal Realm expert, but it was much stronger than them. The aura of chaos permeated the world, making the collapsed and turbulent void return to a kind of extreme calmness, as if it had surrendered. "Welcome to the world, Patriarch! Welcome to the world, Patriarch!" Their voices drifted between heaven and earth, adding a shocking power to people's hearts. Tu Mohan and the other old fogies had lived for countless years, held the great power of the witchcraft cult, and were admired by hundreds of millions of people. But at this time, they all bowed respectfully to the Patriarch. Anyone who saw this scene would be shocked. The Patriarch of the witchcraft cult. Heaven Wizard. Lin Sun's eyes narrowed and his heart was in turmoil. He had heard from Yenji that the founder of the witchcraft cult was called Heaven Wizard, who had walked through many eras and successfully passed through the Great Silence Fatality Tribulation many times. The Eternal Night Emperor, the original body of Summer Solstice, had to hide in the flowing light forbidden area because of the Great Silence Fatality Tribulation. There was no doubt that Heaven Wizard was even more terrifying than the Eternal Night Emperor. Although it was only a Dharma idol of Heaven Wizard's will, Lin Sun felt a fatal threat. Its power was far greater than the Dharma idols of the Eternal Realm present. If they were to really compare, it would be like the difference between clouds and mud. At this time, Tu Mohan was transmitting his voice to the image of Heaven Wizard. Swish! Xian Failing appeared in front of Lin Sun and said, "It's time to take action. Leave the rest to me." He looked solemn, but he didn't show any panic. This should be their biggest trump card. Yi Zichen muttered. Lin Sun's eyes flickered. He had expected that since the witchcraft cult and the Zen cult had come this time, they must have prepared enough power to threaten the foundation of the Yuan cult. The previous Eternal Realm Dharma idols were far from being able to do this. Now, when Lin Sun saw the manifestation of Heaven Wizard, the founder of witchcraft, he understood that this was the biggest trump card of witchcraft's ancestral court. Since the witchcraft cult had sent out such a force, how could the Zen cult not be prepared? As expected, as soon as Lin Sun thought of this, there was a burst of peaceful and solemn Sanskrit chanting between heaven and earth. Immediately after, flowers fell from the sky, golden lotuses appeared on the ground, birds soared, and white elephants trumpeted. The dense and grand Buddha's aura was like a rain of light that illuminated the world. Rumble! A dignified and imposing figure appeared in the field. His forehead was bright and clean, and he looked like a young man. He stood barefoot on an auspicious cloud, and his handsome face was filled with holy and ethereal light. A Brahman light wheel appeared behind him, showing the image of the Pure Land of ultimate bliss. Along with his appearance, Ji Kong and the others pressed their palms together, cupped their fists, bowed, and called out the name of Buddha. The avatar of Shi, the founder of the Dhyana sect. Xian Fei Ling's expression suddenly became unprecedentedly dignified, his brows furrowed. Sure. He was a supreme giant who had walked through many eras before ancient times, overlooking the changes of the world, and a mythical figure who had established the Zen cult with his own hands. At this moment, with his appearance, the horrible power also filled the world, making those old monsters of the Zen cult show a pious expression. Lin Sun felt depressed in his heart, and his face was solemn. He grasped Xia Zhi's hand and transmitted his voice to her. If a battle breaks out later, don't act without permission in any case. Xia Zhi nodded. At this moment, Xian Fei Ling did not hesitate to take out a flying sword. The flying sword rotated in the void and then suddenly stopped. Circles of obscure power rippled out from the sword edge and spread out. Then, a chubby figure stood up from the sword chi. He was dressed in a white robe, with snow-white hair and a kind face, but his body was very fat. The tip of his nose was red, and there was a huge purple-gold gourd hanging around his waist. With his appearance, the flying sword gradually dimmed, and then turned into powder and dissipated. Patriarch, you can only come forward to deal with today's situation. Xian Fei Ling sighed softly, looking a little ashamed. Lin Sun was stunned. This fat old man with white hair and beard was actually Yuan Chu, the founder of Yuan sect? Not only him, but Tu Muhan, Ji Kong and others were also stunned. It seemed that they didn't expect that the patriarch of Yuan sect would be like this. The chubby Yuan sect's patriarch patted the purple gold gourd on his waist and said casually, "What's there to be ashamed of? It's already very impressive to be able to force the heavenly magus and old bald donkey Shi to show their dharma, okay?" His voice was very loud, like thunder on the ground, making people's eardrums buzz. "Yuan Chu, if you are alone, you can't stop today's disaster." In the distance, the figure of Heavenly Wizard was thin and tall, surrounded by chaotic chi. He put his hands behind his back, and his voice was indifferent and cold, like a sword clanging. "It's just 1 against 2. Yuan Chu said nonchalantly, "It's not like we haven't fought before. But today is different from the past." Sure, the patriarch of Zen sect, looked peaceful. Yu Beihai proves the eternal way, Tai Xian is trapped in the mysterious realm, and the divine order of Yuan sect is suppressed by the great disaster. Even if you can resist the two of us, once the aftermath of the battle rushes into Yuan sect, there will be countless casualties, and Yu Beihai's road to proving the Tao will be affected. With that, he looked at Lin Sun. This boy is not the successor of Yuan sect, but the disciple of Puti. Is it worth it to destroy the foundation of Yuan sect for him? At this moment, there was no room for others to interrupt. The confrontation between the 3 patriarch-level figures, even in the 9th heaven, there were not many people who could interrupt. Yuan Chu touched his snow-white beard and said with emotion, "How many years has it been? You are too hypocritical. If you want to threaten, just say it. Why do you have to put on a hypocritical face?" Shi frowned and said, "At present, there is only Tai Xian in Yuan sect. If he takes action, there will be someone to deal with him. If he suffers the backlash of the rules of heaven and earth, I am afraid that he will not survive the disaster that will come in 1,000 years. For the successor of Puti, is it worth it?" He repeated this sentence again. The implication was that Yuan sect was Yuan sect after all, not Fangtsuan Mountain. How stupid it was to destroy the foundation of the ancestral court to protect a successor of Fangtsuan Mountain. Not far away, Tian Wu snorted coldly, and his voice was thunderous. "Stop being so fussy. Let's attack together. Let's see if old Yuan Chu can stop us." His aura was surging, filling the world with a murderous aura. Yuan Chu clapped his hands and laughed. "In the end, I still admire old man Tian Wu more. He is straightforward and never talks nonsense." Shi sighed softly and said, It seems that today's matter will not end well. Boom. His Dharmakaya was solemn, and the Brahma light between heaven and earth roared. Under the terrifying pressure, whether it was Tu Mohan, Ji Kong, Lin Sun, Xian Failing, or the others, they all stiffened. They felt an unprecedented pressure and a sense of suffocation. Yuan Shu clapped his hands and suddenly straightened his back. An incomparably mighty aura spread out. His snow-white hair fluttered and his big sleeves fluttered. He said, "Come, come, come. Let's fight to our heart's content." "Do you think I'm afraid of you?" The heavenly shaman sneered and was about to attack. "Wait, how can I miss out on this fun?" Suddenly, a long howl resounded from extremely far away. When the voice resounded, it was still far away in the horizon, yet when it finished resounding through the air, a thin figure had appeared out of thin air and forcefully entered the battlefield. This person wore a dirty Taoist robe, and a wooden hairpin was inserted into his grayish-white hair, which was coiled into a loose Taoist bun. He wore a pair of straw sandals, and a smile hung on his thin face. As soon as he appeared, his thin figure emanated a clear glow of the grand Tao that shot through the heavens and the earth, and it forcefully pushed aside the imposing auras of the other three founding ancestors. The founder of the numinous sect, Serene, Xian Failing, was surprised and slightly excited. He seemed to have never imagined that the Spirit Church would not hesitate to dispatch the will image of the founding ancestor to assist them under such circumstances. Void invisibility. Lin Sun couldn't help but be visibly moved. This was similarly a big shot that had walked through numerous eras a very long time ago, and his resources and reserves were unimaginably terrifying. "Dizzy? One kiss you poke play handsome," Yuanshu asked with a smile. "If I didn't come, I'm afraid your Dharma image would have been beaten to death." Void invisibility snorted coldly, but there was still a smile on his face. "Now it's a 2-on-2 situation. What do you think are the odds of winning?" Yuanshu looked at Heavenly Shaman and Sure in the distance with a smile. However, Heavenly Shaman's expression was cold, and his words were as frightening as the edge of a sword. 100%. 100%? Yuanshu looked at Sure, the founder of the Zen sect. After all, it's just a Dharma image. So what if it dies here? Sure put his palms together, and his face was calm. "Then let's fight." Void invisibility rolled up his sleeves and pointed at Sure. "I'll fight with this old bald donkey. I'll leave Heavenly Shaman to you." As he spoke, he directly punched out from a distance. Boom! This punch was like an eternal river, breaking free from the shackles of time and space, above the cage of heaven and earth. It was so tyrannical that it made people feel desperate. Anyone who saw it would feel as insignificant as a speck of dust. Lin Sun couldn't help but be shocked. They were both eternal realm wills and Dharma idols, but the power of Su-In, the founder of a sect, had obviously reached an unimaginable level, so strong that Lin Sun couldn't even muster the slightest thought of resisting. Sure uttered a Buddhist chant, and his expression was solemn and calm. Boom! His frock fluttered, and a burst of Buddhist light condensed into a tiny grain of sand. Silently, it dissolved Void Invisibility's punch. A grain of sand is a world. All living beings see it but don't know how big it is. This move of the old bald donkey is really amazing. Void Invisibility sighed with emotion. Having said that, he waved his palm and fingers, and the world split like a canvas. A clear light was born from the chaos, and suddenly turned into an ethereal sword intent, drawing out the eternal power. At this instant, eternal and supreme divine might covered the heavens and the earth, causing the space, time, light, and shadows here to show signs of warping and collapsing. Lin Sun, Xian Failing, Tu Mohan, Ji Kong, and the others who were watching the battle from a distance, all felt extremely distant. It was as if the four founders were in front of them, but they had already stood in the endless void, giving people a sense of untouchable loftiness. It was terrifying. Chapter 30-36. Besides feeling shocked, Lin Sun and the others also noticed that the power released by the four patriarchs, whether they were confronting or fighting, had no effect on outsiders like them. Without a doubt, it was to protect them. Otherwise, it would be an unbearable disaster for Lin Sun, Xian Feiling, Tu Mohan, and Ji Kong. On the battlefield, a sword essence surged and drew out the eternal power. Creation is divine, chaos gives birth to mystery. I can see that you're very powerful. Shi narrowed his eyes. As he spoke, he stretched out his hand in the void, and his fingers bloomed like a lotus. Suddenly, billions of Buddha's light surged out, as if it could illuminate the eternal darkness and deliver all living beings from suffering. Boom! At that moment, the sword essence and the Buddha's light fought, overturning the world and destroying the heavens. When the terrifying aftermath of the battle spread out, countless terrifying and mysterious phenomena appeared. Lin Sun and the others felt a stabbing pain in their eyes. That power was too supreme, above the rules of the great Tao. It wasn't something they could understand. Even the eternal realm's Dharma images trembled in fear. There was a difference in the eternal realm. Passing the great desolation tribulation was a dividing line. There were very few eternal realm existences in the world, and those who could pass the great desolation tribulation were all peerless eternal realm experts. And the patriarchs of the four ancestral halls had all passed the great desolation tribulation many times. Even though they were only using their Dharma images, the power they possessed was far beyond that of an ordinary eternal realm expert. Ha ha ha, again. The faint laughter of the spirit sect's founding ancestor resounded in the battlefield, and then countless strands of sword insight surged into appearance like a vast and ancient river. It swept through the restraints of time and space, and it seemed peerlessly powerful. The Zen sect's patriarch Shi's expression was calm as usual. His body was covered in Buddha's light. When he walked, countless Buddhist kingdoms appeared and billions of living beings chanted devoutly. The power and secret techniques he used in the fierce battle with Su Yin were completely beyond everyone's imagination. It was beyond the scope of the great Tao in the secular sense. Kill! All of a sudden, the witchcraft cult's Grand Master, Heaven Wizard, made his move as well. The black eternal order turned into a blinding light that rose from his slender figure. A terrifying bloodlust and murderous aura rushed out, accompanied by the Heaven Wizard's palm. With a loud boom, it seemed as if the chaos was split apart. I knew you couldn't wait to get beaten up. Yuan Shu mumbled to himself. His snow-white hair and beard fluttered in the wind as he waved his sleeves. Boom! The outline of a vast world appeared and suppressed the oncoming Heaven Wizard. It was as if Yuan Shu had lifted up the whole world and smashed it at Heaven Wizard. Lin Sun was dumbfounded by the incredible scene. Looking at Xian Feiling, Tu Muhan, and the others, their expressions were filled with shock as well. A battle of this level, not to mention them, even in the ninth heaven, it's rare to see such a scene. Rumble rumble, the battle between the four founding ancestors seemed as if it was occurring far away in the nine heavens, yet the strength they utilized could be said to be boundlessly terrifying. It was as if the four true rulers of the heavens were colliding. At the same time, in the sky above the entire seventh heaven, countless unimaginable destructive phenomena appeared. There were suns, moons, and stars falling, mountains of corpses and seas of blood appearing, mighty Sanskrit chants resounding, and thunderous sword cries exploding. Hundreds of millions of living beings scattered across the major areas of the seventh heaven, regardless of their cultivation level, felt fear from the bottom of their hearts at this moment. This kind of phenomenon was simply unheard of. In the first to sixth heaven, there were also many incredible disaster phenomena. Countless cultivators discovered that the aura of the great Tao between heaven and earth had become chaotic and turbulent, unable to be clearly sensed. Even the power of the great Tao between heaven and earth was impacted, tumbling endlessly. No one knew the reason for this, but when all of this happened, every cultivator felt that a great disaster was about to befall them, and they felt a sense of panic and uneasiness. And in the eighth heaven, countless cries of alarm rang out in the places where the 10 immortal giants were located. In other words, when the founding ancestors of the 4 great ancestral halls fought, just the power of their will and Dharma idol could affect many heavens in the eternal world. This was undoubtedly terrifying. The primordial realm. The terrifying light of calamity was like the Milky Way of the 9 heavens, pouring down with a rumble, bombarding Ubehai, who was in the midst of transcending the tribulation. His figure was submerged in the blazing light of calamity, and he couldn't be seen any more. Yenji, who had been guarding in the distance, looked as if he was facing a great enemy. His expression was grave. However, what worried him even more was the battle outside the Yuan sect. Now, the power of the divine level order covering the primordial realm was suppressed by the eternal Great Tribulation, and it was as if it had lost all its power. Yenji clearly sensed that in the infinite star sea, the most terrifying battle of the founding ancestors was erupting. Once the aftermath of such a battle spread and hit the primordial realm, the entire primordial realm would most likely be destroyed and reduced to ruins. This was equivalent to destroying the foothold of the Yuan sect. Compared to these, what worried Yenji even more was that with the current power of the Yuan sect, once such a disaster happened, it would be almost impossible to stop it. At that time, it would not only be the primordial realm that would be destroyed, but the lives of everyone in the Yuan sect would also be seriously threatened. Old you, you just transcended the tribulation. Why did you cause such a big commotion? Yenji laughed bitterly in his heart. Then, his eyes swept far away, and his expression was dignified. Everyone, if that disaster rushes into the primordial realm in the next period of time, what you have to do is head to the Tian Yuan mystic realm as soon as possible. The expressions of Duguyong, Fang Daoping, Yuan Wutian, and the other deputy pavilion masters were uncertain. How could they not know that the current situation was extremely dangerous? It could be said that since the establishment of the Yuan sect until now, such a disaster had never occurred, and it had already seriously threatened the foundation of the entire Yuan sect. We are willing to defend the primordial realm with our lives, Duguyong said calmly. If the primordial realm is destroyed, there is still a chance to rebuild it in the future. If everyone dies, the Yuan sect will really be finished, Yenji said coldly. Everyone in the sect has been settled in the Tian Yuan mystic realm. Once the situation is not right, only all of you can move together to have a chance to bring them away. So, all of you must live. Yenji took a deep breath, and his eyes were resolute. I will guard the primordial realm. Duguyong, Fang Daoping, and the rest were silent, and they were resentful and sorrowful. Ubehai was going through a trial. It was dangerous and intense, and it was impossible for him to succeed in a short period of time. Outside the primordial realm, there was an unprecedented calamity that was about to break out. Under such circumstances, even though they were deputy pavilion masters and possessed transcendent realm great perfection cultivation, they couldn't be of much help. Yenji is right. All of you can head to the Tian Yuan mystic realm now. Suddenly, a clear and calm voice was heard. Taishian Pavilion Master. Everyone's spirits were lifted. Old man Taishian, are you coming out of seclusion? If that's the case, won't all the effort you put into seclusion be wasted? Yenji frowned. If the primordial realm cannot be protected, what's the point of talking about this? There's no need to say more. If necessary, even if I have to destroy my cultivation, I will ensure the Yuan sect's peace. Taishuan's voice was calm, but it had an unquestionable determination. Infinite Star Sea. The battle was getting more and more intense. Yuanchu and Shuin knew that if they showed any signs of weakness, the aftermath of this battle would definitely spread to the primordial realm. Therefore, they didn't hold back. Rumble the battlefield was in chaos, enough to make the heavens tremble. Lin Sun frowned. This battle seemed to be evenly matched, But it was already a very unfavorable situation for the Yuan sect. What should he do? Lin Sun felt a little depressed. So what if he was invincible on the immortal path? In the end, it was not of any use. At this moment, Xian Feiling suddenly transmitted his voice. If the situation is bad, you and I will retreat to the primordial realm first. Lin Sun's heart sank. Obviously, even Xian Feiling realized the seriousness of the situation and prepared for the worst. Lin Sun felt an indescribable feeling in his heart. After all, this catastrophe was caused by him. If Yuan sect hadn't been giving him protection, how could they have been attacked by the witchcraft and Zen sect? Senior, I won't retreat. Lin Sun's black eyes were firm. What the enemy wanted to destroy was him, the successor of Mountain of Mind and Heart. They wanted to take away the divine level order power in his hands. Only if he stayed, this catastrophe wouldn't have a fatal impact on the Yuan sect. Xian Feiling frowned, as if he had guessed Lin Sun's thoughts. But just as he was about to say something, in the distance, Ji Kong suddenly let out a voice. Fellow Taoists of the ninth heaven, if you don't take action now, when will you? Boom. In the void far away, there was an earth-shattering roar. Immediately afterward, terrifying figures walked out of the void one after another, each with a terrifying aura that made the world tremble. There were 5 of them. They were obviously trying their best to suppress their aura, but when they appeared, they still caused great turbulence in the rules of heaven and earth. All of a sudden, Xian Feiling's face changed completely. He gritted his teeth and said, 5 eternal realm. The 5 eternal gods of the ninth heaven are going to go all out against our Yuan sect. Lin Sun felt a chill in his heart. Eternal realm. The 5 that appeared at this moment were not Dharma images, but the true bodies of the eternal realm. At this moment, Tu Mohan, Ji Kong, and other old monsters' eyelids twitched fiercely. They had long known that the ninth heaven would send people to participate in this action. However, even they didn't expect that the ninth heaven would send 5 eternal realm existences at once. All of them were caught off guard by this. There was no doubt that this was a big variable. Boom! At this moment, the figures of the 4 patriarchs, who were fighting fiercely, suddenly dispersed and chose to stop at the same time. Obviously, they also noticed the appearance of the 5 eternal realm existences and realized the change in the situation. Old Yuan Chu, I'm afraid your Yuan sect is finished today, Heavenly Wizard said coldly. Yuan Chu and Xuyin both had a gloomy expression on their faces. Their eyes looked at the 5 figures that were walking in the distance, and their expressions were uncertain. P.S. Thank you for the reward from the leader of Gia de Leo. The comment area was very lively, and there were many people criticizing the goldfish. Although it affected the mood, I will continue to update tonight. Chapter 30-37. With the arrival of the 5 Eternal Realm experts, the atmosphere between heaven and earth became more and more oppressive. We came uninvited. If we disturbed you, please forgive us. An old man in a yellow robe was the first to arrive, and then he bowed to the will of the 4 ancestors. In terms of seniority, the 4 of you are the sages on the eternal path. Although you are not here in person, you are still worthy of my admiration. If you really admire us, you don't have to come here to seek trouble. Yuan Chu had been smiling before, even in the face of the confrontation between Sky Wizard and Sure. His expression didn't change. But at this moment, his face looked very gloomy. The yellow-robed old man smiled slightly and said, If the senior is willing to take a step back and hand over the successor of the Heart Mountain named Lin Sun, I will leave immediately. Asking for people as soon as you arrived, it seems that your Minamoto clan really hates the Fangtsuan Mountain to the bone. Could it be that the owner of the Fangtsuan Mountain smashed your door in the ninth heaven? Su Yin sneered. The yellow-robed old man frowned and said, I respect the senior as a sage, but if the senior doesn't respect himself, then I can't be polite anymore. Oh, why don't you try? Su Yin smiled, Come on, let's do it. Even if I can't kill you, It's not a problem to break a few pieces of your eternal Tao foundation. The yellow-robed old man's eyes narrowed slightly, and he looked at Sure. Sure said calmly, "With this poor monk here, I'm afraid you won't have a chance to do this. On the contrary, once the war starts, these 5 people from the 9th heaven can take the opportunity to attack the Yuan sect. Everyone should know what the consequences will be." These words caused the atmosphere in the surroundings to become even more oppressive and confrontational. At this time, Lin Sun has already learned the identity of the 5 Eternal Realm experts from Xian Failing. They are 4 men and 1 woman. They are from the Eternal God Clan, Song Clan, Taihao Clan, Panwu Clan, and Zhu Clan. The yellow-robed old man who spoke before is an Eternal Realm existence of the Genji Clan, named Yuan Feihu. The other 3 men and 1 woman are Tsang Xiongtu, Panwu Xingyuan, Zhu Baihai, and Taihao Hanwei. Among them, Lin Sun has seen Taihao Hanwei before. When he was in the 6th heaven, he once killed one of his Dharma images. When these Eternal Realm experts arrived, they restrained their auras to the extreme. Obviously, they were afraid of triggering a backlash from the rules of heaven and earth. But everyone knew that since they dared to appear here, they definitely didn't care about all this. Seeing this scene, Lin Sun felt more and more suffocated. Only now did he realize that he had underestimated the determination of these enemies. On the surface, they dispatched a group of Transcendent Realm antiques with many Eternal Realms Dharma images. However, their real trump card was the Dharma images of the 2 founders, which were the 5 Eternal Realm existences from the 9th heaven domain. It could be said that the current situation was completely disadvantageous to the Yuan sect. Anyone who saw such a scene would probably feel helpless and despair. The choice is in your Yuan Church's hands. We came here for Fang Xiyuan's successor, Lin Sun. If you take a step back, your Yuan Church will be safe. The ancestral master of the witchcraft cult, Heaven Shaman, spoke with a cold tone. Take a step back? Yuanchu's expression was cold. If I take this step back, what's the point of me living? Then let's fight. Heaven Shaman was aggressive. Sure said calmly, from the looks of it, Yuan Church is destined to be removed from the world today. What a pity, Yuan Church and Fang Xiyuan are in cahoots with each other. Naturally, they can no longer exist in the world. The yellow-robed elder, Yuan Feihu's expression was indifferent. The other 4 Eternal Realm existences beside him also had a chilling glint in their eyes. If you want to destroy Yuan Church, ask me, Tai Xian, for permission first. Suddenly, the void trembled, and a majestic figure appeared. He was dressed in linen clothes, and behind him, there were hundreds of millions of sword auras. It was Origin Void Pavilion Master Tai Xian himself. Lin Sun was shocked, but he couldn't feel happy at all. He knew that Tai Xian trapped himself in the mysterious realm to comprehend the Great Way. Now that he was forced to come out, more than 100,000 years of hard work would probably be wasted. Yuanchu's expression was complicated as he said, "The winner hasn't been decided yet, and you already came out. You're too impatient." Tai Xian laughed heartily. "It's the same sooner or later. It's just a battle to the death. It's fine to be a little more spectacular." With Tai Xian's appearance, Tian Wu and the others squinted their eyes. "You alone can't change the situation today," Tian Wu said coldly. Tai Xian smiled and said, "I don't care about that. When I die, I'll just drag a few more people down with me." His words made Yuan Feihu and the others frown. If an Eternal Realm existence fought with his life on the line, it was indeed troublesome. "Is that so? Then you can wait to be buried with Yuan Church." Tian Wu's voice was cold. "Count me in for this battle." Suddenly, a cold and majestic voice sounded. Origin Void Pavilion Master Yen Ji's skinny figure appeared in the field. Lin Sun and Xian Failing's expressions changed. Yu Beihai was going through the eternal trial, but Yen Ji was here. Who was going to guard the Yuan realm? "Your illness has been cured?" Yuan Chu asked. Yen Ji said, "There are only some minor problems left." They won't affect the battle. Yuan Shu sighed and said, "Sigh, it's my fault for leaving in a hurry. Otherwise, maybe you wouldn't have such a mental illness." Yen Ji smiled and said, "Fortune and misfortune go hand in hand. This mental illness is also a blessing for me. It allowed me to finally understand where I should go in the eternal realm." Yuan Shu didn't say anything else and looked into the distance. He seemed to have made up his mind. He seemed open-minded and calm. "Come on, there's no time to lose. Let's fight to our heart's content. Even if Yuan Church is destroyed today, when I return from the ruins of Wonderful Path, I will definitely go to your treasured land." His voice was filled with ruthlessness. Tu Mohan, Ji Kong, and the others' hearts tightened, and their expressions changed slightly. Tian Wu sneered and said, "Within 1,000 years, the calamity of the era will come. The world will change, and the past will be destroyed. At that time, whether you, old man Yuan Shu, can still survive the great silence lifeless calamity, is still unknown. How ridiculous it is to clamor for revenge now." Shi Gong made a direct decision. "Taoism friends of the Ninth Heaven, Tian Wu and I will deal with Yuan Shu and Xuyin. Two of you will deal with Tai Xian and Yen Ji. The others can take this opportunity to capture Lin Sun and kill their way into Yuan Church." "Yes." Yuan Feihu and others nodded. The world was chilling and the war was about to break out. Lin Sun and Xian Feiling's hearts sank to the bottom. At this moment, a frivolous and arrogant laughter sounded. "What's the hurry? Do you really think there's no one in Fangsuan Mountain?" Boom! The world was chaotic and the light of Tao splashed. A figure as handsome as a young man appeared in the field. Although his qi was restrained to the extreme, the aura of Eternal Realm was still so strong that it made people tremble. "Martial Uncle Kong Ju." Lin Sun's eyes lit up. "I knew you wouldn't not show up." Yen Ji seemed to be relieved and said with a smile. Kong Ju said, "My martial nephew has been sheltered by Yuan Church all these years. How can I stand by and do nothing?" "When did Puty have a junior brother?" Tian Wu frowned and asked. The others were also confused. It was not that they didn't know Kong Ju, but they didn't know when Kong Ju became Lin Sun's martial uncle and the master of Fangsuan Mountain. "It's none of your business between Puty and me." Kong Ju rolled his eyes. "Don't you want to fight? Let's kill to our heart's content today." The appearance of Kong Ju surprised Tian Wu and Yuan Feihu, but they didn't care too much. It was nothing more than one more Eternal Realm opponent. In the current situation, they still had an absolute advantage. "Haha, I see. Today's tribulation seems to be caused by Yu Beihai, and the chess piece falls on Lin Sun. In fact, you old guys are playing a big game of chess. Let me guess. The era tribulation will come within 1,000 years. At this time, maybe there is only one possibility that makes you join hands to attack us so shamelessly." Suyin laughed. He seemed to notice something and pointed to the depths of the sky. "Is the chess player the mastermind hiding behind the scenes?" His words were earth-shattering. The scene fell silent. Lin Sun couldn't help but be shocked. All this was done by the person behind the era tribulation? Looking at the expressions of Yuan Shu, Tai Xian, Yen Ji, and Kong Ju, they also frowned. Su Yin's words seemed to have pierced through a layer of window paper, making them smell something different. In the distance, Tian Wu, Shi, Yuan Feihu, and others had different expressions. Everyone's expression seemed to hide countless secrets, which were thought-provoking. Lin Sun's heart was pounding. If this was true, today's tribulation would be far more terrible than he had imagined. Ox knows, the era tribulation hasn't come yet. It's ridiculous for you to be alarmist here. How can your Yuan sect be targeted by the person behind the scenes? Tian Wu sneered and broke the silence. If there is a force that can threaten the person behind the scenes in the Yuan sect, it will naturally be targeted. Su Yin's eyes flickered. Otherwise, why do you old guys, who have lived for so many years and have long been above the Eternal Realm, mobilize so many people to deal with the successor of Fangtsuan Mountain? As soon as these words came out, the atmosphere became more and more mysterious and oppressive. Everyone could tell that what Su Yin meant was that Lin Sun was very likely to have the power to threaten the person behind the scenes. This was incredible. Lin Sun himself was stunned and couldn't believe it. The divine-level power in Lin Sun's hand is indeed a priceless treasure, but I'm afraid it's far from enough to cause such a situation. Then there is only one possibility. The lotus that the master of Fangtsuan is waiting for, or the immortal path he seeks, is a potential threat to the person behind the scenes. Su Yin's expression was calm, and his words drifted between heaven and earth. Only in this way can your witchcraft, Zen sect, and even the ninth heaven be so restless and put on such a big show today. This is really a big game of chess. Lin Sun felt a chill down his spine. Was it really so? Looking at the expressions of the others in the field, all of them had become strange. It seemed that after listening to Su Yin's words, they all had their own thoughts. More updates. The double monthly votes will end tomorrow. Please allow the goldfish to call for monthly votes again. Chapter 3038. The behind-the-scenes manipulator of the era. In the ruins of fate, Lin Sun heard from Chen Linkong that he had been looking for clues of the behind-the-scenes manipulator for countless years. Like the ruins of fate, there were many civilized worlds coexisting in it, but no one could get out of it. The reason was that they were trapped in it by a strange force. And this kind of force came from the mysterious behind-the-scenes manipulator. However, Lin Sun never expected that the disaster suffered by Yuan sect today was also related to the behind-the-scenes manipulator of the era. If so, it was too terrifying. However, Heaven Shaman suddenly started laughing from extreme rage, and he berated. Ox Nose, don't try to play tricks on us. Up until now, no one in this world knows if the culprit behind the calamity of an era is a person or a type of energy of the laws. But you shamelessly think that this is a game of chess played by the behind-the-scenes manipulator. How ridiculous is it? I hope all this is fake. Su Yin sighed softly with a faint look in his eyes. Shi Di, the patriarch of Zen sect, suddenly took a step forward and said, "Too much time has been wasted. A battle can end all dispute." That's right. Yuan Feihu, the yellow-robed old man, had a sharp look in his eyes. The other Eternal Realm figures present were also ready to take action. Since all of you are willing to go all out, our spirit church will naturally not hold back too much, Su Yin said coldly. As soon as his voice fell, clatter, there was a violent ripple in the void, and two figures appeared in the field one after another. One was wearing a bamboo hat and a straw raincoat like a fisherman. The other was elegant with a feather fan and a silk scarf, holding a jade ruler in his hand. Both of them exuded the aura of the Eternal Realm. They were the two deans of the spirit sect. The former's Taoist name was Dongli. The latter's Taoist name was Zhizheng. All of a sudden, Yuan sect had two more Eternal Realm experts. Together with Tai Xian, Kongju and Yanji, they were evenly matched with the 5 Eternal Realm experts of the ninth heaven. There was a commotion in the field. No one expected that the spirit sect would be so desperate to help Yuan sect. Do you really want me to owe you a favor? Yuan Chu sighed. Su Yin said, if Yuan sect is finished, I'm afraid the next one will be our spirit sect. The situation had changed, but before Lin Sun could breathe a sigh of relief, the Zen sect's patriarch couldn't help but sigh. I knew there would be so many variables. It looks like the 4 ancestral halls are destined to have a victor today. His voice was still echoing. The sound of Sanskrit resounded in the void, and 2 majestic golden figures appeared one after another. The former was extremely old, and his cheeks were covered in wrinkles. He was a Buddhist monk of the Dhyana sect in the past. The latter looked like a young man and was in his prime. He was the future Buddha of Dhyana, Jia Jing. All of a sudden, the situation changed again. Lin Sun couldn't help feeling a headache and a tightness in his chest. These old fellows really had too many tricks up their sleeves, causing the situation to undergo many changes. Before this, who could have imagined that so many changes would occur? When he looked at the expressions of Xian Feiling, Tu Mohan, Ji Kong, and the others, all of them were extremely surprised and bewildered. Obviously, they'd never expected this. Obviously, all of this wasn't something they were capable of knowing beforehand. Isn't it time for the Eternal Realm experts of your witchcraft cult to take action? Yuan Chu, the patriarch of Yuan's sect, said coldly. At this moment, his expression was extremely cold. Today's changes could be described as thrilling. Everyone had prepared a backup plan, so that the situation had reached an extremely tense point. Once it broke out, the first to suffer the impact would undoubtedly be the Yuan sect. At this moment, Tai Xian, Yanji, Kong Ju, and the others all looked solemn and calm. This was a game of chess. Until the last moment, no one knew whether anyone had a backup plan or not. Tian Wu, the patriarch of witchcraft cult, said, "Things have come to this. It's indeed time to determine the winner. Lei Wu, Xiaoying, you two can also come out." His words made Lin Sun's heart heavier. Sure enough, the witchcraft cult also had real Eternal Realm experts. If so, the enemy had a total of 9 Eternal Realm experts. In terms of numbers alone, they already had an absolute advantage. What was more terrifying was that once such a battle broke out, not to mention how much the destructive power would eventually affect the whole world, the primordial realm where Yuan's sect was located was very likely to be destroyed. If so, how could all the people of Yuan's sect, who were sheltered in the secret realm of Tianyuan, have a chance to survive? How could Yu Beihai, who was undergoing the eternal tribulation, not be affected? However, as the voice of Tian Wu faded, no one responded for a long time. The atmosphere suddenly became strange. Whether it was the primordial sect's side or the opponent's side, they all felt that something was wrong. What was going on? Even Lin Sun noticed that something seemed to have gone wrong. Finally, a wave of spatial fluctuations appeared. Then, a figure appeared out of thin air. However, it was not the 2 Eternal Realm experts of witchcraft cult, but a black-robed man. He was as handsome as jade, like the breeze and the bright moon, and was unique in the world. The aura surging in his body was only at the level of Transcendence Realm. In the situation where a group of Eternal Realm experts gathered together, it seemed very insignificant. But when Lin Sun saw him, he couldn't help but cry out, "Second senior brother, how could it be you?" That person was Zhong Qiu, the second successor of the Mind Stone. The master of the Mind Stone once gave him the Taoist name, Modest Jade, hoping that he would be a modest gentleman and gentle as jade. But Zhong Qiu was not a gentleman at all. He was so arrogant that he became the only disciple of the Mind Stone who made an exception and took back his Taoist name. The master of the Mind Stone said that Zhong Qiu's arrogance was just like his heart. The higher his cultivation, the more arrogant his heart would be, and it couldn't be changed. In short, if there was no accident, the word arrogance would run through Zhong Qiu's life. Why can't it be me? After Zhong Qiu appeared, he completely ignored the horrifying gazes around him and said, "Junior brother, do you think that I, a guy who hasn't even entered the Eternal Realm, will only be a burden?" As he spoke, he came to Lin Sun. Lin Sun shook his head and said, "How is that possible? I just didn't expect it." As early as on the Starry Sky Ancient Path, Zhong Qiu had left for the Eternal World one step ahead of him, leaving only Big Yellow to guard the Dark World. From then until now, Lin Sun had never heard any news about Zhong Qiu, his second senior brother. Big senior brother and the others were trapped in the Taiyu True Realm, while third senior sister and the others entered the spiritual school to cultivate. Only second senior brother Zhong Qiu and fourth senior brother Ling Xuanzi were missing. As a result, Lin Sun was caught off guard when he saw second senior brother Zhong Qiu. "It's right that I didn't expect it. This is called a variable." Zhong Qiu smiled and said, Junior brother, since today's situation was caused by our Mind Stone, we should naturally be the ones to solve it. As he spoke, he cupped his hands towards Yuanchu, Su Yin, Xian Failing, Tai Xian, Yen Ji, and the others and said seriously, the second successor of the Mind Stone, Zhong. Greetings to everyone. He was only a transcendent realm great perfection. However, at this moment, he displayed a demeanor that was not inferior to any of the big shots present. He was upright, calm, and graceful. Although Yuanchu, Su Yin, and the others felt a little strange, they still nodded slightly. They could tell that Zhong Qiu came prepared. Let your Mind Stone deal with it? From afar, Heaven Wizard sneered and said, I'd like to see how a transcendent realm like you is going to deal with it. They also noticed that Zhong Qiu's arrival was strange. Zhong Qiu turned around and glanced at the terrifying existences in the distance. In the end, his gaze landed on Heaven Wizard and said with a smile, Do you know why Lei Wu and Xiao Ying can't come? His words were like a thunderclap, causing everyone's expression to change. Previously, Heaven Wizard had planned to send 2 Eternal Realm existences from the Witchcraft sect to join the battle. That way, they would have an absolute advantage and the outcome would be decided. However, Lei Wu and Xiao Ying, the 2 heaven priests, had yet to appear. This unusual scene had already attracted the attention of everyone present. At this moment, Zhong Qiu's words seemed to have revealed the answer to this mystery. It's your Fangtsuan Mountain's doing? Heaven Wizard said angrily. 2 Eternal Realm existences. Once there were casualties, the foundation of the Witchcraft Ancestral Court would suffer a heavy blow. Zhong Qiu said with a smile, Don't worry. They should have been sent to Kunlun Ruins by now. If they're lucky, they won't be in trouble. Kunlun Ruins. Everyone present was shocked and bewildered. No one had expected that the disappearance of Lei Wu and Xiao Ying would be related to Kunlun Ruins, one of the 4 great Dao ruins. What exactly was Mind Stone trying to do? At this moment, Yuanchu, Su Yin, and the others could not help but look at Zhong Qiu with a strange expression. Zhong Qiu was clearly here to break the stalemate. What do you mean? Heaven Wizard's voice was low, and there was shock and anger between his brows. Zhong Qiu stopped smiling and said seriously, My master said that if a battle breaks out here, not only will the Yuan sect be destroyed, but the lives of hundreds of millions of living beings in the entire 7th heaven will be in danger. I believe that's not what everyone here wants to see. Instead of that, it's better to compete in Kunlun Ruins. At that time, even if Kunlun Ruins are destroyed, it won't affect a single blade of grass in this world. So it's old man Pewdie's doing. Heaven Wizard's eyes were terrifyingly cold. There was a commotion in the crowd. This was too unexpected. No one had expected the appearance of Mind Stone to change the situation when both sides were constantly revealing their trump cards. Lin Sun was extremely excited. Previously, he felt depressed and powerless. The change in the situation even made him unable to see much hope. However, with the arrival of second senior brother Zhong Qiu, everything seemed to be reversed. Zhong Qiu said indifferently, All of you joined forces and came in an overbearing manner to determine the victor in front of the Yuan school. Since this matter started because of my Fangtsuan Mountain, how can my Fangtsuan Mountain not retaliate? So, the master of the Mind Stone is already here? Suddenly, the patriarch of the Zen sect spoke, and his voice spread throughout the surroundings. Everyone's hearts trembled. Even Lin Sun could not help but feel anticipation. However, Zhong Qiu shook his head and said calmly, Master went to the ruins of Dao a long time ago. Even the power of the will he left behind is in the Kunlun ruins. He did not come. Everyone was stunned and confused. Chapter 30-39. Ever since Zhong Qiu's appearance, the tense atmosphere had been shrouded in a layer of mystery. Admittedly, he was only in the transcendent realm great perfection. However, his identity and words caused everyone present to be surprised and suspicious. The atmosphere had also become strange and oppressive. When he personally admitted that the master of the core dimension's true body and will avatar did not appear, everyone present became even more confused. If the master of the core dimension did not make a move, who brought Lei Wu and Xiao Ying to the Kunlun ruins? Because of these doubts, the witch sect led by Heaven Wizard, the Zen sect led by Shi, and the eternal realm existences from the ninth heaven, such as Yuan Feihu, did not act rashly. Things were too abnormal. Today's situation was full of variables, causing them to be vigilant. We can't delay any longer. Heaven Wizard raised his eyes and looked into the depths of the sky. The eternal calamity against Yu Beihai was still ongoing. In my opinion, only by making a move will we be able to find out who exactly is trying to mystify us, who is delaying for time, or who is putting on an act. Yuan Feihu said coldly. Zhong Qiu placed his hands behind his back, calm as ever, and said, "Don't worry. If we calculate the time, that senior is on his way." Heaven Wizard's eyelids twitched. He realized that the senior Zhong Qiu mentioned was most likely the person who prevented Lei Wu and Xiao Ying from appearing here. Do it. He couldn't hold back and stepped forward. At this moment, they still had an absolute advantage in the battle. Once other variables appeared, it was very likely that today's situation would be reversed. This was absolutely intolerable for Heaven Wizard. He was only a will avatar. Even if it was destroyed, he wouldn't care about it. Boom. Heaven Wizard took a step forward, and the tense situation was instantly broken. It was as if darkness had descended between heaven and earth. An endless black purgatory appeared, shrouding the people of the Yuan sect in the distance. Almost at the same time, the Zen sect's patriarch Shi, past Buddha Jiaxiu, future Buddha Jiajin, and the ninth heaven's 5 eternal realm figures also moved. The Brahma light spread out, the sound of thunder surged, and the terrifying aura of the eternal realm was suddenly released at this moment, causing the power of rules covering this area to collapse into chaos. The moment eternal realm existences like Jia Xiu, Jia Jing, and Yuan Feihu attacked, they suffered a terrifying backlash from the laws of heaven and earth. However, they didn't care about it at all. They forcefully neutralized the power of the backlash and continued to attack. Rumble in the boundless territory of the seventh heaven, hundreds of millions of sentient beings were horrified to discover that the vast sky seemed to have been bombarded, and a shocking crack appeared on it. It seemed as if the sky was truly about to collapse. The laws of the Grand Tao were showing signs of collapse, and it was to the extent that it affected the operation of the order of the entire world. The boundless mountains, rivers, and the vast world surged with all sorts of inconceivable calamities. That was a real natural disaster. It was like the end of the world. This, heavens! How could this be? Countless screams of horror sounded in many places in the seventh heaven. It was unknown how many cultivators felt despair at this moment. This was the power of the eternal realm. Each and every one of their actions could affect the changes and disorder of the laws of a heaven. They were unimaginably powerful. Now, it wasn't just one eternal realm expert that had attacked. When they saw Tianwu, Shi, and the other old fellows disregard everything and launch attacks, Yuan Chu, Su Yin, and the others glanced at each other and didn't hesitate any longer. However, right when they were about to attack, a bell suddenly rang. Clang! The bell was grand, heavy, and solemn. It was like the voice of all living beings in the world, and it resounded in the sky above the myriad star sea and spread throughout the entire seventh heaven. At this instant, the collapsed laws of the heaven and earth seemed to have been repaired, and they became extremely firm. The boundless sky that was on the verge of collapse recovered its former tranquility and vastness, and the various inconceivable phenomena of natural disasters seemed to have been wiped away by a shapeless hand, causing the myriad of living beings in the world to be freed from their feelings of despair and terror. The hearts of Tianwu, Shi, and the other old fellows trembled, and their eyes suddenly focused. Clang! The sound of the bell resounded, and it produced an invisible and terrifying force that oppressed Tian Wu and the others to the point the light on their bodies trembled. Their attacks were dispersed by the grand sound of the bell. Even Yuan Chu, Su Yin, and the others couldn't help but reveal solemn expressions. The sound of the bell represented all living beings. This was the power of the great Tao of Kunlun ruins. At the same time, Lin Sun recognized it as well. He had heard this bell many times a long time ago, but he didn't expect it to suddenly appear at this moment. Moreover, its power was so powerful. Clang! Another bell chime resounded, and a huge vortex door suddenly appeared in the void. Everyone's eyes turned to look at him. Even Tian Wu, Shi, and Yuan Feihu stopped attacking at this moment, and surprise and bewilderment appeared between their brows. Without a doubt, the biggest variable in today's situation had appeared. The vortex door was overflowing with light and colors as it floated in the void, emitting a mysterious aura. Under everyone's gazes, a figure walked out from it. He was dressed in linen clothes, barefoot, and had a strange appearance. His eyes were deep and calm, and in his palm was a bronze bell that was suffused with a boundless and heavy aura. It's him. When he saw this figure, Lin Sun was stunned and revealed a look of disbelief. How could he forget this senior who had once been dormant in the mulberry forest and chatted with him? This person was naturally the golden cicada, the mysterious existence who had once made the grand wish that all living beings in the world could become saints. The legendary figure who had once broken through the forbidden power of order with a single step and left. In Lin Sun's heart, the young man with the golden cicada was an extremely mysterious existence. When one came into contact with him, they naturally couldn't resist him. His entire body was as warm as the spring breeze and as gentle as beautiful jade. It was to the point that people often overlooked how profound his cultivation and strength were. Lin Sun still clearly remembered that senior brother Li Xianwei had once said that a long time ago, there was a golden cicada who went to Mount Fangsuan. It stood on an ancient tree outside the mountain gate and listened to the master of Mount Fangsuan expound on the great Tao for 30 years. The master of Mount Fangsuan did not chase it away. Instead, he instructed his disciples not to disturb it. 30 years later, the golden cicada transformed into a young man and cupped his hands towards Mount Fangsuan from afar before turning around and leaving. At that time, the master of Mount Fangsuan, who was explaining the great Tao to his disciples, smiled and said something that still left a deep impression on the descendants of Mount Fangsuan. 30 years of meditation and enlightenment. Although this cicada is small, the Tao is greater than the heavens. The Tao was greater than the heavens. At this time, the young man with the golden cicada appeared again. He stood in front of the vortex portal and held the great Tao lawless bell in his hand, which immediately attracted everyone's attention. How could it be you? The patriarch of Zen sect was surprised. It's the golden cicada that wandered in the long river of eras. I didn't expect that he would appear at this moment. The voice of the sky wizard was low, and there was a rare solemnity between his eyebrows. Seniors, could it be that you're talking about that legend who passed through the 10,000 layers of the ocean and experienced 1,000 tribulations in eternity? Yuan Feihu couldn't help asking. His heart was in turmoil. According to the ancient records of the ninth heaven, there was a mysterious cicada in this world, who had appeared in many eras and reincarnated in eternity and experienced thousands of tribulations. Who else could it be except him? The eyes of the sky wizard were terrifying as he stared at the young man with the golden cicada. Yuan Feihu and the others couldn't help but feel shocked. Thank you, senior. At this time, Zhong Qiu in the distance cupped his hands and said. Lin Sun also cupped his hands and said, Senior, long time no see. The young man with the golden cicada nodded to Zhong Qiu first, and then looked at Lin Sun with a warm smile, saying, Little friend, when I chatted with you in the mulberry forest, I still feel the mystery of fate when I think of it. It's not an accident that we can meet this time. Lin Sun was stunned. It turned out that the young man still remembered the scene when they first met. The young man with the golden cicada looked at Yuan Shu and Xuan and nodded slightly. "Two Taoism friends, we meet again. I didn't expect it to be you." Yuan Shu had a strange look in his eyes. He had also walked through many eras and met the young man with the golden cicada. He had also heard that there was a cicada that went through a reincarnation in every era, and every reincarnation had to go through thousands of tribulations and difficulties. It was regarded as a legend on the eternal road. There was once a rumor that this cicada was born higher than the sky, and it would not save itself but save the world. Xuan sighed with a subtle look in his eyes. "If it weren't for you, I really can't think of anyone else in this world who could have such power as you. May I ask, in this life, in this era, have you gone through thousands of tribulations and completely transcended in the reincarnation?" The golden cicada smiled and said, "A little bit more." How much was a little bit? No one knew. But everyone knew that the appearance of the golden cicada had completely changed the whole situation, and it was no longer under anyone's control. "Golden cicada, did you take away the two divine priests of our witch cult?" The voice of the sky wizard was cold. Since the appearance of the golden cicada, his face had been extremely cold and gloomy. "Yes." The young man with the golden cicada said gently, "If the strong like them who have set foot in the eternal realm fight desperately, all the people in the world will suffer." After pausing for a moment, he swept his gaze across everyone present. "I'm not here to resolve the enmity between all of you. I'm here to choose a suitable place for all of you to fight. That way, all the living beings in the world can be protected." The Sky Wizard said coldly, "You're using the pretense of all the living beings in the world to help Fengtsuan Mountain. Golden Cicada, the rumors about you in the world are all illusory and unfathomable. I really want to know how you'll stop everything today by yourself." The young man with the golden cicada smiled and turned to look at Yuan Shu, Xuan, and the others. "Fellow Taoists, are you willing to head to the Kunlun ruins to settle this matter?" "Sure." Yuan Shu and the others agreed. As long as it did not implicate the Origin sect, they would naturally not refuse such a suggestion. "What do you think?" The young man with the golden cicada looked at the Sky Wizard, Sure, Yuan Feihu, and the others in the distance. "You want us to agree just because of what you said? Don't you think too highly of yourself?" The Sky Wizard said coldly. Sure pressed his palms together and said solemnly, "That will depend on whether you have the ability to make us go." Obviously, he did not agree either. The eyes of Yuan Feihu and the other Eternal Realm cultivators flickered. Although they did not say anything, they were undoubtedly unwilling to leave just like that. "I'll continue updating at night. The double monthly votes will end at 12 tonight, and the competition will be the most intense tonight. Yes, I'll leave it to you all." Chapter 30-40. The atmosphere was horrifying. The golden cicada youth was not nervous at all. Instead, he sighed softly and said, "Some things in this world can only be settled with fists." Yuan Shu said, "Fellow Taoist, why don't we fight together?" Golden Cicada shook his head. "Let me do it." As he spoke, he waved his sleeves and stepped forward. "Everyone, please enlighten me." Heaven Wizard was the first to attack. He flipped his palm, and a dark purgatory-like world appeared. It covered the sky and was filled with infinite eternal chi. As the founder of the wizard sect, even if it was just a Dharma form, the power of his attack shocked the true eternal realm existences present. Too strong. No wonder he had survived the great desolation, fateless tribulation many times. He was a terrifying big boss who had walked through many eras. Golden Cicada stood still, and the great Tao lawless bell in his hand suddenly rang. Clang! To the others, the sound of the bell was grand and boundless, shaking their minds. However, it wasn't inferior to the most terrifying attack in the world to a heaven shaman. The dark purgatory world he created was like a leaf that was torn apart by a gale, and it instantly transformed into powder. Boom! His figure shook violently, and he staggered back from the impact. His expression changed at this moment. So strong. Everyone was shocked by this scene. It should be known that the weakest one here had transcendent realm cultivation, and there was no lack of true eternal realm existences. Everyone knew how powerful Heaven Wizard's Dharma form was. However, such a powerful existence could not withstand the impact of the bell, which was too shocking. "Let's attack together," the Zen sect's founder shouted softly. Boom! His monk robe fluttered, and the great Kiliacosm realm condensed in front of him. It was filled with mysterious and vast law fluctuations. The light was dazzling, and it illuminated the 9 heavens and 10 earth. Rise! Yuan Feihu and other eternal realm existences also attacked at this moment. Some condensed Tao sounds, some mobilized divine swords, some summoned wind and thunder, and some directly bombarded with fist energy. For a time, the heaven and earth law here showed signs of collapse again. The sky was dark, and the earth trembled, as if the end of the world had arrived. The wills and dharma images of the 2 ancestral masters, plus 7 eternal realm experts, can run rampant in the 9th heaven. Yuan Chu, Void Concealment, and the others exchanged a glance. They were all prepared for battle. However, at that moment, Jin Chan waved his sleeve. Buzz! The great Tao lawless bell rose into the air, and its thick body glowed. Then, a thunderous bell sound rang through the world. Dang dang! Along with the ringing of the bell, the attacks of Tian Wu, Shi, and the others were fiercely suppressed, and the world that was on the verge of collapse stabilized once more. Moreover, the bell produced a terrifying power that constantly battered the figures of the heaven shamans and the others, suppressing their cultivation and power. It was as if he'd fallen into a swamp, causing him to feel as if his hands and feet were bound. Even if he charged forward with all his might, he was actually unable to escape the impact of the bell that surged and spread out. Seeing this scene from a distance, Lin Sun couldn't help but stare with his eyes wide open. He had once brought the artifact spirit of the great Tao lawless bell with him, but who would have thought that this treasure that was born in the Kunlun ruins would actually be so terrifying? No. It should be said that the golden cicada was too powerful. Otherwise, how could a single treasure possibly shake such a group of terrifying big shots? "Everyone, please be on your way." The golden cicada, who was dressed in linen clothes and stepping barefoot in the air, spoke softly. He stretched out his hand and grabbed. Boom! The heaven shaman's will avatar was actually grabbed through the air. "It's a pity that my main body isn't here. Otherwise, I wouldn't have allowed you to humiliate me like this." The heaven shaman was furious, and his face was livid. He struggled with all his might and even tried to destroy his own will avatar to take the young man down with him. However, all of this was in vain. No matter how hard he tried, he could not break free. His entire body was firmly grabbed and thrown into the space-time door that floated in the air. In the blink of an eye, the will avatar of the witchcraft sect's patriarch, the heaven shaman, disappeared. Yuan Chu, Su Yin, Tai Xian, and the others could not help but be moved. Their eyes were filled with shock. In the distance, Tu Mu and the other old monsters of the witchcraft sect were dumbfounded, as if they had been struck by lightning. How was this possible? It wasn't just them. The hearts of the Zen sect's patriarch, Shi, Yuan Feihu, and the others who were fighting shook, and they shuddered. Too strong. This golden cicada was really, as the rumors said, its Tao was higher than the heavens. At this time, they did not dare to hesitate and attacked with all their strength. Each of their auras skyrocketed, and it was terrifying beyond imagination. However, their power was firmly suppressed by the continuous ringing of the bell. The most shocking thing was that the power of the great Tao lawless bell was also maintaining the stability of the laws of heaven and earth. Otherwise, once the battle aura spread, it was bound to affect the entire 7th heaven. Here! The golden cicada youth reached out his hand again and grabbed. Under the shocked gazes of the crowd, the will avatar of the Zen sect's patriarch, Shi, was also grabbed through the air, powerless to struggle. You! How can you be so strong? Shi's eyes were filled with disbelief. Even though it was a will avatar, he clearly felt that even if his main body was here, if he fought against the golden cicada youth, he would not have the confidence to win. Whoosh! While his voice was still echoing, Shi's figure was thrown into the vortex portal and disappeared. This time, the expressions of the past Fujiaxu and the future Fujijing of the Zen sect changed. They had used the power of their main bodies, but they were still suppressed in this situation. How could they not understand that their attainments in the eternal Tao were far inferior to that of the golden cicada youth? Retreat! They chose to retreat at the same time. Right now, it was no longer a question of whether they could capture Lin Sun and destroy the Yuan sect, but whether they could keep their lives intact and leave this place. If I let you retreat for a while, you are destined to become a lifelong disaster. No matter who it is, no one can leave until today's grudge is settled. The golden cicada said indifferently. He pressed his hands together. Boom! The figures of the past Fujiaxu and the future Fujijing were covered by an illusory mysterious light, like fish caught in a net. In the blink of an eye, they were also sent into the vortex portal and disappeared. This scene made Ji Kong and the other old monsters of the Zen sect feel a chill run down their spines, as if they had fallen into an ice cave. That was an existence of the eternal realm. It was the power of the main body. In the eternal true world, they were the true sovereigns of the heavens. But now they were captured like insects. Yuan Chu and Su Yin looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. How high is it? Yuan Chu asked. It's impossible to estimate, Su Yin sighed. Looking at Tai Xian, Yan Ji, and Kong Ju, all of them looked as if they had seen a god. Their eyes were bright and blazing. Such elegance made them look forward to it. Second senior brother, is Senior Golden Cicada's great way really higher than the sky? Lin Sun murmured. Zhong Qiu quickly said, that depends on which sky it is. He is an existence that has walked through many eras, and has gone through thousands of reincarnations in the eternal realm. If you want to know how powerful he is, I'm afraid you have to ask Master. It was difficult to hide the surprise in his words. Lin Sun could not help but recall the scene when he saw the golden cicada in the mulberry forest. At that time, the golden cicada did not show much power. But now, Lin Sun vaguely understood that to the golden cicada, every era was a reincarnation, and every reincarnation had to go through thousands of tribulations. His strength was no longer something that could be measured by cultivation level. Even the founders of the 4 great ancestral halls had heard rumors about him. One could imagine how extraordinary the golden cicada was. Golden cicada, can you give us a way out? We promise that we won't leave the 9th heaven before the calamity of the era arrives. Only Yuan Feihu and the other 4 eternal realm existences from the 9th heaven were left. However, at that moment they already had the intention to retreat. Have you given the Yuan sect a way out before? Have you given the people in the world a way out? The golden cicada young man's expression was calm. However, don't worry. I'm only giving you a chance to determine the victor. When we reach the Kunlun ruins, I won't interfere whether you live or die. Although he said that, the expressions of Yuan Feihu and the others were ugly and gloomy. Boom! They attacked with all their might and tried to leave. However, it was useless in the end. They were captured by the golden cicada one by one and thrown into the vortex door before disappearing. At this point, none of the terrifying existences from the witch sect, Zen sect, and 9th heaven were spared. They were all sent to the Kunlun ruins. In the distance, Tu Mu and the other members of the witch sect, Ji Kong, and the other members of the Zen sect were all shocked by this series of unforeseen events. Yuan Chu, Su Yin, Tai Xian, and the others were stunned as well. It was just a single person, yet he had captured all the old fellows who could be said to be the strongest in the heavens and sent them to the Kunlun ruins one after another. Such methods could be said to be unparalleled in the world. The golden cicada young man put away the great Tao lawless bell, turned around and said, "Everyone, this grudge will need to be resolved by all of you. It's not suitable for me to interfere. Please go on your way." "Senior, why is that?" Lin Sun could not help but ask. How could he want to see Yuan Shu, Su Yin, and Tai Xian risk their lives in the Kunlun ruins? "I can't do it." The golden cicada young man's voice was gentle as he pointed to the depths of the sky. "If I get involved, no matter where I go in the future, no matter how many reincarnations I experience, I'll be targeted by the mastermind." His words caused 1,000 ripples. Yuan Shu, Su Yin, and the others seemed to understand. They cupped their hands and said, "Thank you for your help, fellow cultivator. We will never forget your kindness today." The golden cicada young man said, "I was only entrusted by someone. I can't accept such a great favor. Everyone, it's best if you take action early. Don't keep Brother Bodhi waiting." Second senior brother, Master is also in the Kunlun ruins? Lin Sun could not help but ask. "It's just a will avatar of Master," Zhong Qiu said softly. Yuan Shu and Su Yin no longer hesitated and flew straight into the vortex door. Immediately after, Tai Xian, Yen Ji, Kong Ju, and the two eternal realm existences of the spirit sect, Dong Li and Zhizheng, were all about to take action. Lin Sun could not help but ask, "Senior, do we really need all of us to leave? Without Tai Xian and the others, who would guard the origin sect? Junior brother, don't stop us. This is a good thing. I'll explain to you later," Zhong Qiu said softly. He could tell that Lin Sun did not want Tai Xian and the others to fight. He was worried that they would encounter danger. However, there was another reason behind this matter. These people had to leave now, or else they would be in great trouble. "Here's a gift. Thank you, brother, for your reward. Thank you, brothers and sisters, for your rewards and monthly votes." Speaking of an important matter, during the double monthly votes period, there were 3 more Alliance Masters. Currently, there were exactly 50 Alliance Masters. There were 50 Great Daos and 49 Heavenly Evolutions. One of them seemed to be a coincidence? Forget it, the goldfish had agreed. There would definitely be a huge explosion this month. Congratulations to all the Alliance Masters and the brothers and sisters who voted. The above words were free of charge.